The Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship returns for 1991. The class is divided at 1600cc, 2000 and 3000cc. Class A, for over 3 litre cars, will star this Nissan Skyline GTR, driven this year by Neal.
Yes, it's a brand new car. It's developed by Jan Speed, so we got most of their little bits on it, but we've added our own few quirks to it.
The leading Ford Cosworth-powered Sapphire is likely to be Dave Pinkney's.
We're running this Sapphire rear-wheel drive car at the moment, but we may change it to the four-wheel drive system because the cars are now being homologated with £16 worth of boost, so hopefully give the Nissan a chance, a run for its money.
Is it the four-wheel drive or the boost that's the advantage?
I think it's the boost. The four-wheel drive obviously coming out the corners, but we're doing a rolling start in the championship, so four-wheel drives, it's going to help, but it's mainly the boost we're looking at, I think.
The Class A challenge will include this man, Steve Monk, who finished runner-up in this class in the 1990 championship, Paul Lee, who only did 1 or 2 races during last year, Dave Bartram, another relative newcomer to racing, Frank Greenway, moving up from production saloon racing to this Group N championship, and the lone Saab 9000 of Lionel Abbott. In Class B, Steve Griffin's M3 should be the front runner.
Ill health sort of got the better of me last year, so hopefully we'll be able to stay healthy all year and do the whole championship.
And the Class B part looks pretty competitive too.
Yeah, some very quick drivers there. It's obviously some back from last year, and obviously with the addition of Kurt Luby, he's come down from the Touring Car Championship. He's very quick, so it should be a very competitive year.
Luby and Peter Tyson are teamed up in these very striking BMW M3s. James Latham returns to the championship once again, although now preparing his car himself, while one of the newcomers from historic racing is young Soames Langton, likely to be a real charger. Finally, the only non-BMW is Alistair Davidson in his Mercedes-Benz 190E. Class C has traditionally been the preserve of the Vauxhall Astra or the Volkswagen Golf, but this year there's a new challenger, the Peugeot 309.
There's a lot of development to be done, and I think we'll be actually, hopefully, embarrassing a few of the BMWs. I think the Golfs have had their day. I'm sorry to say for all the people who've gone out and bought Golfs. They'll all be buying Peugeots now.
So you're pleasantly surprised?
Yeah, I mean, it's been built up by the works mechanics at the factory. They know all about rallying. I was a bit worried. I was quite confident if I went on the grass the car would handle well, but they don't know much about circuits, so they're going to learn. I'm going to learn about the new car, so it can only get better, really. But no, the car's beautiful.
Another newcomer is reigning Alpha champion Terry Stacey in this 33, and back for more action is John Morris in his black Volkswagen Golf GTI. After being dominated by one man last year, Class D will be highly competitive. James Kaye on the left and Roland Dane on the right, racing for the Derek Warwick Motorsport team. Derek at the first round to support his team along. All drivers in this class race the little Honda Civic VTEC, a very rapid car. Graham Churchill there, the champion last year, defending his title against not only the Warwick cars, but also Trevor Elliott, the general manager of Honda UK. So a capacity grid of cars lines up for the opening round at Silverstone in Northamptonshire, with Neal in the four-wheel drive Nissan on pole position, Dave Pinkney alongside him, Frank Greenway and Peter Clark on the second row, although Clark starts from the back of the grid, Stuart McCrudden and Ian Kahn lining up on row 3. 5 Ford Cosworth-powered cars behind the Nissan. The skies look very gloomy before the start, a rolling start of course behind the Rover Vitesse pace car, and as they come to the line you see the hole there where Peter Clark should be as they cross the line and the lights flash to green. 2 Fords either side of the Nissan as they go up towards the new-shaped Copse for the first time. Into Copse, who's it going to be? Yes, it's the very distinctive Dayglow pink, white and blue car of Dave Pinkney that leads into Copse for the first time. The Nissan behind him, and already there's been a drama there, a back bumper, the green one, and over he goes. The red car there, that's the Demon Tweaks car of Alan Minshaw from up in Cheshire. A very bad start to his season. The other car he made contact with looked like Stuart McCrudden. We'll check that out a bit later on. So Pinkney, Neal and Frank Greenway leading as they go through the new Beckett's here. Silverstone circuit reduced from about 1.9 miles down to 1.6. Yes, there's McCrudden's car showing some damage. So obviously it was him who made contact. And there, thankfully, out of the car is Alan Minshaw. And I wouldn't like to hear what he's saying inside his helmet. Into the complex for the first time, Pinkney leads from Neal. That's one of the blue Maxted cars there in third place. That must be Ian Khan. And here we're in car with Matthew Neal. Already you can see a few spots of rain on the screen of the Nissan, and you can see how he's fighting for grip, and for that matter, how Pinckney's fighting for grip ahead of him. And we're going to go into the lead. Yes, Matthew Neal, the additional grip that the four-wheel drive of this Nissan gives him, taking him past Dave Pinckney, and on go the wipers. This is not going to be a very good start to the season if you don't like racing in the wet. Into Copse again, Matthew Neal in the 100-plus wheels, back to Nissan leads, Dave Pinckney that's there in second place, third is Ian Khan, fourth is Lionel Abbott in the front-wheel drive Saab there, running for the very last time with its 2-litre engine. There's a new 2.3-litre power unit for the Saab coming up on April the 1st, and Pinckney gets a tighter inside line at Beckett's there. Matthew Neal not at all happy with the new shape of that right-hander, drops down to second place, and we're back in car with him, up through the gears, along the straight, little dab on the brakes there from Pinckney, under the bridge, braking now for the tight left-hander once again, and Neal, as you can see, more grip there as he goes through the corners, managing to get a little bit closer to Pinckney. Pinckney was talking in that interview earlier on, possibly about getting four-wheel drive. Well, watching the way that Matthew Neal's opposite locking this four-wheel drive car, and God, we nearly went off there. Not entirely sure that four-wheel drive's necessarily that much of an advantage. Well, there's Lionel Abbott coming alongside Matthew Neal now. The Saab, of course, a front-wheel drive car, although as we go in car with Matthew Neal in second place, he's trying to find a way past Dave Pinckney. Pinckney goes very wide at Copse there, and does that give us the opportunity? I believe it does. Matthew Neal then in the Nissan Skyline moves up into the lead. Dave Pinckney having run very wide down to second place, and Pinckney look as though he might lose second to Ian Khan. Khan, of course, a newcomer to this championship with experience in sports cars and in Formula 3, and Khan's really putting Pinckney under pressure, and as they come under the bridge, Khan up into second place, but Pinckney fights back. And yes, Pinckney, as they go into the left-hander in the Warranty Holdings car, back into second place. This battle, of course, between these two Fords is allowing Matthew Neal something of a breather and allowing him to pull away from those two. So then Neal leads, Pinckney is second, Khan currently is third, fourth, still well in touch with that leading trio there is Lionel Abbott. Then a gap back to Class B leader in fifth place overall, Steve Griffin, then Dave Bartram is behind him in sixth place, seventh is John Pye, eighth, having a good charge up from his back of the grid start, Pete Clark. Ninth is Steve Monk, and 10th here is the leading of the Hondas, that's Graham Churchill. Next across the line in 11th place and second in the Honda class at the moment is James Kaye, as we go back in car with the race leader Matthew Neal, down a gear for the left-hand kink, and they go right into the new Beckett's. Completely different circuit that they've all had to learn this year. Not all of them have had an opportunity to test, and Matthew Neal loses the lead, and this time for the first time into the lead goes Ian Khan. So our third race leader in this opening round of the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship in 1991, and if this is a promise of what is in store for the remaining 14 races, then we're going to have a terrific season. Ian Khan in the Maxted car, headlights ablaze in Matthew Neal's car. You caught the reflection on the rear number plate of Ian Khan's car there. Matthew trying to find his way past. I wonder how long the bonnet is on a Nissan, because we'd have a far better idea of just how close he's getting to the back bumper there. Through the complex, about to come across the start-finish line again. Well, we can see a bit more clearly there just how close he's getting, and there isn't more than a car's length in it, so Ian Khan leads. Matthew Neal is in second place, the rain still coming down. Third is Dave Pinckney, and the first of the tail enders to be lapped any second now is one of the little Volkswagen Golf GTIs out of the 2-litre class. So Khan, Neal and Pinckney all approaching and indeed passing that Golf. That's Alan Besant, one of the newcomers to the championship this year, paying good attention to the blue flags waved to remind him that there are faster cars behind him. Lionel Abbott laps him as well as they go through Beckett's. We catch a glimpse of the Class D leader, Graham Churchill, being harried there by James Kaye. There's Soames Langton, so he's got past at least one of the little Hondas. Trevor Elliott then, got past two of them indeed, both Roland Dane and Trevor Elliott. We're back in car with the man desperately trying to retake the overall race lead that he had earlier on, and Ian Khan breaks rather earlier than Matthew Neal was anticipating doing, but that's really put Matthew a little bit off his stride, but no, he tries a tighter line. Oh, and he's very sideways, fighting for grip in that four-wheel drive Nissan there, and not getting as much as he wanted. So Ian Khan in the Sierra Cosworth, a very good run indeed for Ian in this very powerful rear-wheel drive car. I bet he wished he had a bit of four-wheel drive. And just look how close they are as they cross the line once again. Khan leads from Neal. with David Pinkney doubtless hoping that there's going to be a bit of a drama ahead of him. But look how close Neal is to Ian Khan now. They're coming along the pit straight. We're back in car with Matthew Neal under braking for, or perhaps not braking, for Copse. We go through to take the lead with Matthew Neal, but he's very wide on the exit of the corner. I'm looking to see if I can catch a glimpse of Ian Khan in the rearview mirror of Matthew Neal's car. I think I did. Ian Khan, I think's alongside. Yes, there he is. And Ian Khan is back into the lead again. What a terrific race these two are putting up. More cars to lap, the first of them directly ahead of them, the Terry Stacey Alpha 33, but they should pick him off fairly easily as they go down the straight. Well, can Matthew Neal do anything about it this time? There's the Alpha, which they're lapping as they come under the bridge up towards the complex. And look, they've got a lot of traffic ahead of them now. It's going to be very, very busy here. And the Astra of Dave Pitcher there gets lapped by the leading Group 2. But Ian Khan, Matthew Neal, we're back in car with Matthew. He can't go all the way around the outside of there, Matthew. Jolly good idea, but I don't think it'll work. No, it didn't. So then, Ian Khan leads. Matthew Neal is in second place. David Pinkney is third. The proverbial blanket would cover the three of them. And Matthew kicking and diving, looking either side of Ian Khan as they come up to cross the line once again. Khan it is who leads. Now, this is last lap, where the last lap that Matthew managed to get past him. Gets alongside, and yes, he does it very smoothly, exactly as he did on the previous lap. However, can he hold on to the lead? I'm trying to catch a glimpse in the rearview mirror again of where the blue Sierra's gone. You can see Matthew glancing to the right to see where it is, and yes, it is pretty much alongside him as they come up to lap Richard Waugh in his Honda. The tighter inside line is currently in the possession of Ian Khan, and therefore he, as they go into Beckett's, takes the lead. But on the exit of that corner, Matthew Neal has the tighter line out of the corner and is alongside. Just look at this. I wouldn't want to be Richard Waugh. He pulls right over to the left of the circuit to let the battling leaders pass. And as they come down into the complex again under the bridge, Matthew Neal tries to go around the outside of Ian Khan. Can he do it? No. Oh, I don't know. He might be able to. Yes, he does. He'll going to have the tighter line on the right-hand element of this complex. Matthew Neal back into the lead in the Nissan Skyline GTR. Ian Khan in the Sierra Cosworth in second place. Dave Pinkney in the Sapphire Cosworth in third. Nissan Skyline GTR, the car that won the class last year, although this is a new example of the car, takes the checkered flag, winning the opening round of the 1991 Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship. Class B is won by car number 33, which is the black BMW M3 of Steve Griffin. Class C, a terrific result this for car number 75 there, that's Patrick Watts in the Peugeot 309 GTI. And Class D, a great battle for this class, coming out on top this time though, James Kaye. Confirmation of the results then, Neal, Khan, Pinkney and Abbott are the top four. Pete Clark finishes fifth after a great drive from the tail end of the field. Class winners are Steve Griffin, Patrick Watts and James Kaye.
Round 2 was at Silverstone as well, and they were hoping for better weather. They got it, with Matt Neal and David Pinkney off from the front row into the corner. Through Copse and Beckett's, however, it all changed round a bit, because Pinkney took the lead and Ian Khan and Paul Lee got through. Neal found himself back in fourth place in one easy lesson. And that all changed at Brooklands, when 3 into 1 wouldn't go. The result was damaged Sierras and Neal diving through into the lead, while Lionel Abbott had a moment all of his own. And this was how Matt Neal snatched that lead, flat in the curb and getting a bit sideways in the process. Into the pits went Ian Khan, obviously a bit depressed with the Maxted Sierra, while Pinkney was suffering from the bodywork running on a front wheel, which wasn't helping at all, and Steve Monk and David Bartram passed him. Heather Bailey was having her first dice with a four-wheel drive Sapphire. Steve Monk was the man who was just about to find a way past here. In the smaller classes, James Kaye and Graham Churchill continued their round 1 battle, and Patrick Watts was once again leading the 2-litre class right behind them. Behind Heather Bailey, Graham Hathaway had a puncture. Had a look at the sand trap at Copse as well. While Kurt Luby was well in front of his lot with the BMW. At Luffield, Matt Neal got very sideways. But he got it back again and went on to win the race. Unlike poor old Soames Langton in the ex-Neal car, who ended up on the grass, spinning wheels and losing a few places. So up to the line came Matt Neal to take the win ahead of Paul Lee, with Frank Greenway finishing third. Kurt Luby won his class as well from Griffin. And Graham Churchill triumphed over the Honda Civics to win Class D. Pat Watts, well, the Peugeot saw off Vaughan Richmond's Vauxhall Astra. So the top three placings very firmly in the hands of Neal once again, taking victory. Behind him, Paul Lee and Frank Greenway. David Bartram quite well up, and Luby finishing 8th overall. The next round was at Brands Hatch, which saw a hat-trick for Matt Neal. But Gareth Howell surprised everybody with a good second place, and he was to appear later on in the championship. Then it was on to the first long-distance race at Donington Park, the 500 kilometres.
Leading the classes prior to this race, Matthew Neal leads Class A and also the championship overall. Steve Griffin, Class B, Patrick Watts, Class C, and Graham Churchill, Class D. Today, tactics are all important.
We're going to change the brake pads on the first stop and a set of tyres. And Tim will go out. We'll do about an hour and a half as well. Come in again, change a set of tyres, and then we'll go on to finish. Hopefully just the one set of brake pads.
It's very, very marginal on the fuel. We'd like to do it on one stop, but this year we're not as confident as we were last year that we can.
And you brought experience into your team with Mark Hales.
Experience, is that another word for age? I'm not sure I should be flattered by that or not. No, it's very nice to be asked. I've not driven a Group N BMW before today, and it was a lovely opportunity. I'm very grateful to Steve, and it feels a very nice car. He's a bit tall, and I'm sort of driving with my fingertips at the moment, but we're going to fix that for this afternoon. But no, it's very nice.
Such a lottery, this race, because it's 4 hours long. We've got brakes, tyres, the other drive, everything plays its part. We just hope we can just be consistent and be there at the end.
Last year, all three of the endurance races in the championship were won by BMW M3s, the cars from Class B. Can that be broken this year? We'll see. Pole position has gone to the Matthew Neal Nissan Skyline GTR, which has won all 3 rounds of the championship so far. He's got Barry Williams alongside him. The second of the Nissans, Rob Squires, lining up behind. That's got Dave Loudon at the wheel for the start. That'll be an interesting car. Problem there in the pits already. That's the Ford Exchange Parts car of Stuart McCrudden, and he's going to be starting from the pit lane. And as the lights flash from red to green, we're in car right at the start here with Paul Lee. Moves himself up a couple of places instantly. That's Lionel Abbott, Saab pulling directly in front of him as we approach Redgate for the first time. Dave Pinkney there in the warranty holding Sapphire Cosworth ahead. That's Matthew Neal on the inside. Championship leader outright and in his class, but Pinkney it is who's going ahead, I think, as we go downhill through the Craner curves. No, Neal's fighting back side by side. Lionel Abbott there, a very good third place early on for Lionel in the Saab. First lap, first major difficult corner, heavy on the brakes for the right-handed old hairpin, and it's Pinkney who leads, then Matthew Neal, then Lionel Abbott. We're with Paul Lee, also in a Sapphire Cosworth, in 4th place at the moment. Through the left-hander with no name up towards McLean's. Hard on the brakes once again. Oh, bit of opposite there from Paul Lee. We just about gather ourselves together, run a little bit wide, look as though we lose a place there to Frank Greenway. Here, though, is Pinkney in the lead through the difficult double apex coppice corner and onto the long straight. And as we go in car with Matthew Neal already, there's what's that, about 8 or 9 lengths or so advantage as we go under the Dunlop Bridge that Pinkney's got. Hard on the brakes once again for the S's and onto the Grand Prix loop. And remember, what an important part brakes are going to play in this race. I keep mentioning just how hard on the brakes you go on the Donington Park track, and that's going to be important. There, the Class B leader at the moment, 21, is Kurt Luby. But we're back with the front of the field. Frank Greenway, as I thought, has got past Paul Lee. There's Luby leading Class B, tucked right in behind him, one of the Graham Hathaway cars with Steve Monk at the wheel. Back with Paul Lee, though, in the Sapphire at the moment. Braking, you can see them locking brakes to Dave Loudon directly in front of us now in the Rob Squires Nissan Skyline. Loudon, who was a second or so quicker than Squires in qualifying, a much more experienced driver, of course, giving this newly built for this year car by far its best run so far. Comes out very wide, and then he dives down to the inside to try and get past Lionel Abbott that way. Oh, good Lord. Dave Loudon's determined to get past that Saab, trying every which way to find a way past in the big four-wheel drive Nissan Skyline. On this lap, he doesn't succeed, if anything, running a bit wide there. He lost himself a bit of time, so the order remains the same. This man, Dave Pinkney, leading. This man, Matthew Neal, in second place. Frank Greenway now up into third place. Lionel Abbott fourth. Loudon tucked right in behind him fifth. Paul Lee, the in-car camera there behind them, and alongside gets Loudon as they go under the bridge. No, Lionel fought back very hard there to hold on to that place at the moment. Much more powerful car, the Nissan Skyline, four-wheel drive, of course, which does help a bit. The Saab up to a 2.3-litre engine this year from the 2-litre engine of last year. A little bit more torque it's got, but no more straight line speed, and Loudon's through. And I think we might be through as well with Paul Lee. And we're, I don't think you can get much closer to a Jim Russell graduate from that without touching him. Heard a bit of a bump there, but I think that was us on the curb rather than Paul Lee contacting with Dave Loudon. Incredibly fraught pace this. Remember, we've got a 500-kilometre race on our hands here today. That's going to be at least 4 hours. I personally would say perhaps 4 hours, 10 minutes, 4 1/4 perhaps, which is roughly what it was last year. Incredible pace that these guys are putting themselves under in the very early stages. Now side by side there with Paul Lee. On the inside is the Graham Hathaway car of Steve Monk. He gets past us, and we're now in car with Kurt Luby, Class B leader in one of the Frank-shorted Pirelli LNC BMW M3s. Very good view of the Class A battle directly ahead of us, down through the gears, braking for the left-hander at Goddard, and there's contact there. Who was that? I don't know. Let's think. Well, off onto the right, that looked very much like the Saab, and that on our right there, 14, that's Angus Mackay. There is the Saab. Oh dear, look at the serious damage to the rear door. There's the matching dent, and there's no steering on that car from what I can see. Angus Mackay there, the Nottingham Motor Trader, you can see him steering the wheel to the left. The wheel's not reacting at all. He can't get himself. He's trying to go down the. He was trying to go down the pit access road, and we're now in the pits. And this is the Paul Lee car we're back in car with again. There's the team manager wearing the tabard there, saying, "Don't forget to switch the engine off. You're in the pits." Remember, last year here at Donington in the 500, the Nissan Skyline of Keith O'Dore ploughed off into a gravel trap with a puncture. It was very disappointing for him. His first really bad result of the year. Let's hope nothing's in store like that for Matthew. We're back in car with him, and what had been something like an 8 or 9 length advantage Dave Pinkney had in the Sapphire, well, that's come right down to virtually nothing. We pull alongside in the Matthew Neal car, coming under the Shell Bridge, under Starkey's Bridge, and I think, I can't really see because the mirror, of course, looking the wrong side. I think we're in the lead. Yes, we are. Matthew Neal then in the Rimstock racing car in the lead, and retirement there already. Well, I'm assuming a retirement. He's pulling a long way off the track if it isn't. This car's Trevor Elliott in the Kart World Honda. He'd already been into the pits once. Whatever problem he had, obviously not resolved. We'll try and pick up on that a bit later. Championship regular Frank Greenway's car. This is Andy Middlehurst at the wheel for the early part of this race, chasing the leading group, still there in about 6th place. Yes, there he is, just ahead of Dave Loudon now, and tucked in behind Alistair Lyle, who's driving Ken Grundy's Sierra, just ahead there, the white R&D car. Making its way slowly through the field and picking up a retirement there by the looks of it. Some very nasty, ugly smoke coming out of the back of that Sapphire number 2, which is the Gareth Howell car. Mike Wiles was down to drive that later on, but it doesn't look as though he's going to. Now then, Pinkney, having been dropped to 2nd place, is dropped to 3rd place. Alistair Lyle storms past Dave Pinkney there, and he slips down a further place. Middlehurst now behind him and poised. This man still leading, and as you can see, as we work our way through this race now, beginning to lap some of the slower cars, considerable divergence of performance, diversity of performance among the cars from Class A, the over 3 litre class, and then the slower runners, the Astras and the Hondas. Terrific battle there now for 3rd place. Andy Middlehurst right alongside Dave Pinkney. Very good shot there of the 2 styles of Cosworth powered Ford, the 4-door Sapphire and the hatchback Sierra. But Pinkney defends it, but there's contact there. And Pinkney is not quite off into the gravel trap at the S's. There was some contact there with Alistair Lyle. And into the pits, I think, yes, pulling off down the pit lane goes Dave Pinkney. Now, we saw Dave making contact with Alistair Lyle just then. I would think it may be a problem with body work on tyres, because that's a problem which tends to arise. Yeah, you can see there, thank you very much for moving out of the way, just the dent on the car. They'll be working with the Port of Power just to get that out. Very busy Donington Park track here. We're watching the Graham Hathaway Racing Sapphire of Steve Monk, runner-up in the class last year in this championship. Of course, not progressing quite so well so far this year. Back in the pits, though, Pinkney's car is pushed back into the garage, into retirement. Tragic after such a good run. At 25 laps then, Kurt Luby here in BMW M3, the Class B leader. Class D being led by the James Kaye Mark Smithson little Honda. This man is leading the race overall, Matthew Neal, yet to hand over to his teammate Barry Williams. That'll be coming up a little bit later on in the race. And Class C leader at this 25-lap stage is John Morris's Volkswagen Golf GTI with Chris Hodgetts at the wheel in the early stages. Great performance from them. In the pitch then, that's Heather Bailey's white helmet in the Ford Exchange Part Sapphire Cosworth. She's taken over from Stuart McCrudden. Notable performance by Stuart, up to 5th place by the end of 25 laps after that start from the pit lane right at the tail end of the field. Great performance there so far from that team. Rob Squires has got his light hanging off the side. There's a big dent thumped right in the front of that car. It's steaming away. He's just come out of the S's onto the Grand Prix loop, and as we see, he pulls off onto the grass. Marshall's in the background, already preparing themselves to come down and assist. Let's hope it's not a retirement. In the pits, a problem with the Listers Golf.
Something along the fuel line, but I don't know what. Keeps cutting out, so not too sure.
Disappointment there for Chris Hodgetts, who'd done so well in that car in the early stages. Problem for Rob Squires, who can't even get under the bonnet of his Skyline to find out what the problem is. You can see where it's dented there. It's obviously thumped the bonnet lock mechanism. Looking through the field now, the Frank Greenway Sierra Cosworth here, just passing us now with Andy Middlehurst back at the wheel again. The blue flag's being waved very energetically. Is that a problem for that car? Suddenly slammed the brakes. Oh, he's just... Oh, no, that's what that problem is. Good, that's the Peugeot 309 then of Mike Fish, newcomer to the championship, first race in this series. And the yellow flag's being waved as we go back to the incident just here. Not really sure what starts it, but all we can just see is the Sierra Cosworth braking. That's Coppice Corner, incidentally, this incident occurs at. And he runs very wide onto the grass to get round this dramatically rolling car there, the Peugeot. As I say, first time in the championship, a lot of bits of bodywork there. The driver, though, as you can see, walking away from the car with the marshals. I'm pretty certain this will bring the pace car out, and that may give an opportunity for one or two people who've got their brains in gear to nip in for a quick stop during the slower running pace car period. We had the pace car out earlier on, but not a lot of people had the chance to do it. We're now in car in one of the BMW M3s. It's the Kurt Levy car with Pete Tyson now having taken over from him. There he comes out of the pits. Behind him is the Alistair Davidson Mercedes-Benz, the only non-BMW in Class B. These two progressing round to join the back of the Crocodile here, slowly going through Goddard. We can see the race leader. The pace cars pulled back off into the pit lane, so racing is once again underway. Everybody bunched up, of course, having been parading round behind the pace car. So a bit of excitement, a bit of a busy track for a while as the cars sort themselves out into order once again. Race leader at the 50-lap mark then is Matthew Neal, still in the Nissan Skyline GTR. This is his teammate Soames Langton's BMW M3, the car that Matt won Class B in last year, just leading the next group. Black BMW there coming past one of the Hondas. That's the Class B leader and second overall at 50 laps, the Steve Griffin Mark Hale's car. We catch a glimpse of all the Hondas just storming past the camera there. Roland Dane and Robin Brundle. Martin Brundle, silly me. Robin Brundle sharing with Roland Dane, leading Class D. And Class C is the Watson Longman Peugeot, which we just catch a glimpse of there. So the leader still right in among all that traffic. You see how difficult it is, and he runs very wide. Oh, I thought Matthew Neal was going to have a problem there. Has to go so wide to get round all of this traffic. Headlights ablaze, indicating to the people ahead of him that he's the leader. See, it takes 4 or 5 laps for the way in which the traffic is built up to sort of smooth out once again after the pace car has been out. Matthew Neal being very careful, though. Got quite a sizable advantage at the 50-lap mark over the second place car in the class, which now is the McCrudden-Bailey Ford, easing past the James Latham BMW there through Goddard. Very fine looking motor car, that Nissan Skyline. Preparation, of course, from Jan Speed in the car build period of time before the start of the season, now run by Rimstock Racing. Matthew's father, who runs that business, of course, Steve Neal, who used to be terribly successful in mini racing in the past. He's obviously handed a lot of that talent down to his son. There's the second place car, so in fact the gap's closed up quite a bit as a result of the pace car. The gap we saw there on the road, they're on the same lap, being the gap from first to second. And off goes the Saab. Now, was that a puncture or did he get a tap? Very difficult to tell. That's got Graham Scarborough at the wheel, Lionel Abbott's teammate, and that Saab ain't going nowhere that well into the gravel trap there at McLean's. Sad retirement for that, because we've often said that it's the longer distance races where the Saab, which doesn't have the straight line speed of the Cosworths and the Nissan, can often show up well. Well, sadly, it's not going to be so today for the Lionel Abbott team. Here then is Matthew Neal as we go back in car, this time with Peter Tyson at the wheel of the Frank Shorter BMW. Pirelli's marketing manager, Peter, he's raced Porsches and still is racing Porsches this year, in fact, as well as the BMW. Back, however, to the race leader. Very solid performance here from the... And he's weaving. What's happened? Problem for Matthew Neal. I was about to say a very solid performance from Matthew Neal. Barry Williams in the pits looking very disappointed. What has happened here? They're ready for refueling. Barry looks as though he was getting himself ready to get in the car. And here is Matthew Neal weaving to left and right. That must be because he's shaking the fuel around, but the car is still moving through the S's then onto the Grand Prix loop, and it suddenly stutters there coming out of the S's. Big heavy car, this Nissan, white flag behind. That's to indicate there's a very slow car on the circuit. Dual purpose flag, the white flag. Matthew Neal then grinding slowly to a halt. So with fuel feed or lack of fuel problems, Neal is out. This car is now in the lead, and Heather Bailey's just got back into the pits.
Hard work's getting very slippy, a lot of rubber out there. But apart from that, as long as we stay on, there's cars diving off everywhere. So fingers crossed we'll do it.
Oh, no problem. And this is Matthew Neal's teammate, that's Andy Jeffrey in the car that Soames Langton's due to take over any second now. He's pushing it, must be the same problem as the other car by the looks of it, fuel feed or out of petrol, don't know which. He's pushing it. This is the pit lane. You see the yellow markings there at the front of the picture. That's the pit lane. He's nearly reached it, but no, I think the marshals are coming to say, you can't do that, you can't push the car on the track. Yes, they're taking over. The man leads in to steer the car onto the grass, and sadly, another retirement there, Soames Langton not to drive today, and problems in the pits as well. Another one of the BMWs, that's the Julian Fultz-Eric Henriksen car. That's got the marshals all around it. That's going to be a retirement as well. So at 75 laps, this car leads the race outright. It's the Class B leader of Kurt Luby with Peter Tyson in that M3 at the moment. These two cars are leading classes C and D respectively. That's the Patrick Watts Peugeot ahead there. This is the Graham Churchill Class D leading Honda at 75 laps, and amazingly up into 5th place overall. Splendid performance. And this car's leading Class A at 75 laps, and that's with Stuart McCrudden at the wheel of the Exchange Parts car at the moment. Second in their class, Frank Greenway and Andy Middlehurst. That's with Frank at the wheel at the moment there, the Sierra RS Cosworth. Retirement then for the Paul Lee, Kevin Maxted Sapphire. Paul just getting out of the car, taking his helmet off. Now into the pits comes the Class B leader, Peter Tyson, at the wheel of the BMW M3. That is the car that he's battling for the Class B lead with. They haven't been very closely in touch. It depends really just how quickly their pit stop can be. So coming up the back of the pits then is Mark Hales as the Kurt Luby car is in the pits. Here we see it. He's being strapped in by the team. The door is closed. Now can he get... He's determined to get out of the pit lane. Here he comes, coming up the pit lane then. Second overall when he came into the pits. Will he still be when he comes out? Certainly looks as though he is. The M3 now at Redgate. Yes, there's Mark Hales behind him. Only a few lengths in it. Let's hear from Peter Tyson.
Yeah, it's going okay. It's a pretty close thing, I think. But we've got all our fuel in now, so that's all I'm worried about. So. And I've got Kurt in as well. So the responsibility is his.
So then, Esso Donington 500 coming into the last 25 laps or so. Really the business end of this race, as you might say. They've been going for 3.5 or so hours already, and this is the Class B lead battle. Terrific after that length of time, absolutely nose to tail as they pass the Class D leader Graham Churchill's little Honda. Kurt Luby leading the class in car number 21, the Frank Shorter BMW M3, goes through the S's. Mark Hales, the guest driver, so to speak, in Steve Griffin's car. Never remember having raced a Group N BMW until this weekend, but a very experienced driver indeed. Mark Hales, also a motoring and motorsport journalist, using that wealth of experience to stick with Kurt Luby now. Kurt's the ex-kart racer, and Mark Hales gets alongside him, noses the black Cotswold BMW alongside, and Kurt Luby runs very wide. Does this give him a chance? Yes, it does. And that was a very shrewd manoeuvre indeed by Mark Hales there. Unsettled Kurt Luby just a little. Luby didn't really know which way Mark Hales was going to come from. Luby ran very wide. I wonder whether he's got a tyre problem. That's the only thing. But this time it's Mark Hales who runs very wide. And no, he gets back alongside again. Luby retook the class lead there. And I think as they go onto the top of the Craner curves, he's still got it. Yes, he has. We're in car with Kurt Luby now, coming down to the old hairpin, down through the gears, steering through the old hairpin, using the curbing on both sides of the track, running very wide, rumbling over the curbing there, but staying in front of Mark Hales. Absolute determination to do that now for the remaining 25 laps of this 500-kilometre race at Donington. Through McLean's we go as well, sawing away at the wheel, Kurt Luby, and we see them again. Mark Hales looking as though as they come uphill from McLean's towards Coppice, he's got the tighter inside line, may do him some good. No, it doesn't. He's nearly found his way past that time, but not quite, and it's the Frank Shorter Pirelli M3 which is still ahead, putting his brakes on. They're braking, you see that very, very early indeed there from Kurt Luby. He must have a brake problem if he's braking that early on the straights. He's coming up towards one of the most difficult corners, and he throws it rally style to get through the S's. He must have had a brake problem, and off into the gravel trap goes Kurt Luby. And judging by the distance into that gravel trap he is, I reckon that's it. Yes, Kurt knows the answer already. He's out of the car. Very disappointing then for Kurt Luby and Peter Tyson. Obviously a break. And we've got another problem here. This man is driving on the grass. This is not usual behaviour. It's Stuart McCrudden, so it could be. Oh, look, you can just see it there. Front offside tyre is flat. Now, where on the track is he? Let's just have a look. Heather Bailey there, standing in the pits, ready to take over the car. You can see the disappointment in her eyes. If he's got much of the lap to go, and I think he will have, this car with Mark Hales at the wheel, number 23, will be poised to take the overall lead. But no, coming up and passing him, that is the Frank Greenway Sierra Cosworth. They're on the same lap. The Cosworth is now ahead, so that is now in the lead of the Esso Donington 500 as we come to the final stages of this grueling race. Very disappointing for the McCrudden car, which had been leading, just passing Kurt Luby's M3 in the gravel trap at the S's there. Frank Greenway standing there, ready to take over. He'll be taking over his car. This car is the McCrudden car. You see the puncture there. He has indeed completed virtually an entire lap with that puncture. Cost him a lot of time. A couple of laps or so, and a disappointed McCrudden.
Well, it blew a tyre just at the chicane here, just at the hairpin onto the main straight, which meant I've got to do the whole damn lap on 3 wheels, but as it's 4-wheel drive, it's no problem.
Also in the pits, tyres there ready for a change. I wouldn't have thought Mark Hales was going to be coming in again. He's certainly not handing over to Steve Griffin, who's there in Civics. Yes, Jack under the... No! Confusion there in the pit for the Cotswold BMW team. Jack under the car, ready to put tyres on. Decision made by somebody not to. I have a feeling they haven't got the benefit of pit-to-car radio there, so obviously an element of confusion there for them. They know they can't win the race outright anyway, but they need to consolidate their class lead. So Mark Hales back out on the track at Redgate, and there, Andy Middlehurst out of the car. Frank Greenway pulls off out of the pits, back out also, and looking as though the braking effort is considerable there for the Sapphire Cosworth 4x4 of Stuart McCrudden and Heather Bailey. You can see the steam coming up. I bet there's nothing at all left on those brakes. Frank Greenway then, now back at the wheel of the car he races regularly in the closing stages of the Esso Donington 500, leading the race overall in the class. Patrick Watts, this is Richard Longman driving the Patrick Watts regular car, former British Touring Car Champion, of course, leading Class C. Graham Churchill here in the Steels of Hereford entry, the Honda Civic, comfortably leading Class D, and up to third overall as we come to the very last lap of the 125 of the Esso Donington 500. Frank Greenway and car number 12 now coming down the final loop of the Grand Prix circuit, just behind Graham Coombs' BMW M3, Coombs sharing with Dave Brunston this time out. Frank Greenway uphill towards Goddard, taking it very steadily indeed, as you can see, not wanting a last lap drama, last corner drama indeed, to cost them this victory. The first time an endurance race for Group N written to these regulations has been won by a car other than one from Class B. It's the Class A winner who takes the checkered flag. 4¼ hours of racing in this event. Frank Greenway and Andy Middlehurst then win the Esso Donington 500, round 5 of the 1991 Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship, and a famous victory that is too. So the confirmation of the results then, overall winner Greenway and Middlehurst in the Sierra, second overall in Class B winners Griffin and Hales in the M3, Class C and 10th overall victory to Patrick Watts and Richard Longman, and the Class D winner Churchill and Rob Hall, an amazing third overall. After the presentations, a final word from our winners.
The team, I think we've got to thank first. They played a very tactical time, changing the brakes at just the right time. Andy for doing an absolutely superb job. The whole thing came together, went like a dream. The car felt like it could do another 500k at the end of the race.
And it proved that the Sierra can win one of these 500k races.
Yeah, well, we won last year, Slim Borgen and I, in the production one. Obviously the BMW has got an advantage with a larger tank and is a little bit easier on the brake, so we decided to go for the more cautionary and make sure we got there at the end, and went up for all the right decisions. About lap 15 and Dave Pinkney was running out of brakes. He was going down the inside of the chicane, and Alistair Lyle met him in the middle, and to avoid, they blocked the track, and to avoid, and I set to half, turn it sideways to stop hitting them, that's all. We dropped from 4th to 7th, but caught back up again.
Matt Neal's Donington disaster meant that although he'd got the lead in the class, he'd lost it in the championship to Pat Watts. Griffin maintained his position, so did Graham Churchill. It was on to Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit as the support race for the Sports Car World Championship. Silverstone has changed a bit over the years, but never more so than in 1991. It's a longer, it's a harder circuit, so what did the drivers think?
Very good actually. It's still very quick, a lot more so than you'd think. The corners which they put in are still very fast corners.
They've got to be congratulated really on slowing the cars down in the way they have. It would have been easy just to put chicanes in and completely spoil the place, but they've been imaginative, and it's really nice.
It's the first time here for me. I need a map, a co-driver really. So after 4 or 5 laps I was just feeling my way round. I think there's a lot to come from me yet.
The Esso Superlube Championship, of course, runs on racing rubber. Here we see the scrutineers and teams sorting out the slick rubber here for the Ford Exchange parts. Sapphire Cosworths starting rather lower down the grid than the team would have hoped, down in 13th place. So then Matthew Neal on pole position by nearly 2 full seconds for this 5th round of the Esso Superlube Championship. Dave Pinkney alongside him on the front row of the grid in the Sapphire Cosworth, this one of the 2-wheel drive Sapphire Cosworth, rear-wheel drive of course, the Warranty Holdings car. Inside of row 2, Peter Clark, another Sapphire Cosworth there, also 2-wheel drive, and perhaps the sensation of qualifying, car number 33, Steve Griffin, quickest in Class B in his BMW M3 on the outside of the 2nd row of the grid. A truly sensational qualifying. Steve Monk there in car number 16 inside of row 3 in his Sapphire Cosworth. That's one of the 4-wheel drive cars, as is this, alongside him his team mentor and organiser Graham Hathaway. Dish of the day, that's given by the Silverstone Marshals. That's Patrick Watts. His glass is very distinctive there in the left-hand drive Peugeot 309 GTI. He's fastest in his class by nearly 2 seconds and will be starting on the 8th row of the grid. Confirmation of those times then, Neal's Nissan a 2:10.61, Pinkney a 2:12.60. Pace car lap, rolling start, remember, for Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship races. We're in car with Steve Monk in the unsponsored run by Graham Hathaway Racing entry 4x4 Sapphire Cosworth. The Rover pace car pulls off into the pit lane, and already we're gaining rapidly on Peter Clark, indeed pulling alongside him. We get an excellent view from here of the battle for the lead, and it looks to me at the moment as though Pinkney may have the advantage as they go into Copse, but no, Matthew Neal there directly ahead of us in the Nissan. It is who leads into Copse, but Pinkney rides right round the outside of him. Excellent manoeuvre there by Dave Pinkney. Up into the lead he goes, and I believe that he's carried Steve Monk through into 2nd place with him. Trying to glance in the mirror. Yes, we're up into 2nd place. Not if we have to correct ourselves like that. We won't be for very much longer. Steve Monk, oh, very sideways there. Really fighting for grip. Of course, this race coming after the Sports Car World Championship race, so loads and loads of rubber down on the track, making life very difficult for the saloon car racers. But Pinkney it is who leads. We can see Monk tucked in behind him there. The Skyline unusually down in 3rd place at the moment. Then Peter Clark, Frank Greenway, Griffin leading Class B, just losing a place overall there to Lionel Abbott. Pinckney really putting on an excellent performance there. Down into Vale. This is the downhill dip, the new element of the circuit up there between Stowe and Club Corners. Interesting to hear Steve Griffin say how imaginative he felt the circuit designers had been. Nice to hear good feedback from competitors. Back into Club now. Pinckney still leads, and if anything, pulling away certainly from Steve Monk. Matthew Neal there in third place, then Clark Greenway. Abbott now up to 6th, 7th is Graham Hathaway behind him. The rest of the field streaming through 3¼ miles this Grand Prix circuit here, so it's a very demanding race indeed for the Group N saloon car racers. Along the short straight into Brooklands then. Battle for the lead really intense, great pressure in this Group N contest here. Up into second place there on that short straight between Brooklands and the first element of Luffield has gone Matthew Neal. So Steve Monk demoted, and you can see him struggling for grip there. Demoted then to third place is Monk. Clark and Greenway tucked in behind. 5 cars still though in with a chance of victory in this race. Across the line at the end of lap 1, Dave Pinckney leads. Second is Matthew Neal. Third, Steve Monk. Now it's really Pinckney and Neal pulling away from the rest. Still a tight group there though, battling for third place. And what's this problem for the championship leader, Patrick Watts there? Obviously a drama with the Peugeot, the man with his hands in his pockets there, Des O'Dell, the Peugeot Sport Supremo. We go for a replay from Peter Tyson's car. You can see the Peugeot just ahead of us there. Obviously an oil seal or something. It's dropping all sorts of nasty things all over the road. Catches out, that was one of the Sierras there just spinning. I think that was probably Prokofsky. And so a drama then for the championship leader. He'll be very disappointed with that. Back then live with Matthew Neal in the Skyline GTR. We're giving energetic chase to race leader Dave Pinckney. 2-wheel drive Sapphire, that is, remember, 4-wheel drive Nissan Skyline. We're sitting alongside. Closing right up as they come under the bridge then. Is this going to be the point at which the lead changes? Well, I think it probably is. We're just watching as they go into Stowe now. Are we going to catch a glimpse of Pinckney in the mirrors just to confirm where he is? Well, certainly he's not ahead, so Matthew Neal now as they go down through the Vale element, one of the new sections of the Silverstone circuit, through the left-hander and back up into the old Club Corner. Matthew Neal then now in the lead. Here we see it from outside the car. Pinckney, what, about 3 or 4 lengths behind, and Neal pulling quite dramatically away there now he's got ahead. Wonder whether Pinckney's got a problem, because his car doesn't look terribly stable. Great battle behind him. Steve Monk still there in third place, but Frank Greenway and Peter Clark having a good vie for fourth place. As this man, Matthew Neal, championship leader until Donington, failed to finish at Donington, determined to get a good result here at Silverstone this time round in round 5 to get him back into contention for the overall championship chase. And yeah, what's happened? He's really just sort of pulled off into a great lead now, leaving Pinckney, Monk, Greenway, Pete Clark and Graham Hathaway to battle for the rest of the places. Be very disappointing for Dave Pinckney, who's had a very rough year in the Warranty Holdings car once again. He puts an immense amount of effort into the preparation through Advanced Racing Developments, his own company, of getting this car really in tip-top condition for every round of this championship, but so often mechanical or tyre dramas that are out of his control have been disappointing him. John Morris there in the Golf just ahead of Richard Waugh in the second of the Steels of Hereford. Honda's very nearly losing it there. Once again, Matthew Neal really stamping his authority on this race. Out dives Peter Clark to find a way past Frank Greenway. Thinks better of it as they brake quite sharply for Stowe Corner then, and very nearly a little bit of contact there. In fact, I think there might have been, as Steve Monk's right off onto the grass, fighting for control. Somehow in the midst of all of that, he managed to retain his third place. I don't think I'd be able to answer questions on that later as to quite how he managed to do it, but he did. Side by side for fourth, just behind him, though, still Frank Greenway just holding the place at the moment. Peter Clark, and Clark now coming under pressure from Graham Hathaway. Great performance for Monk and Hathaway, very much the best drives for these two so far in the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship this year. Matthew Neal looking pretty untroubled at the moment as he comes under the vehicle bridge. Back in car with him, watching how he saws away at the wheel, down through the gears. Quick glance in the mirror to see where Dave Pinckney is. through the very tricky new sections of this circuit, through the left-handers at Priory and then Brooklands, along the short straight, and then you set yourself up for the two right-handers, the two elements of the Luffield corners. First element completed through the second element now, and then back onto the traditional circuit at Silverstone and through Woodcote. Third place battle, that is there. Monk now demoted to fourth by Frank Greenway, so Frank moves up to third place. Yes, you can just see if you glance at the front corners of Greenway's car there, a little bit of evidence of some of the contact that this sort of close racing from time to time inevitably is going to create, although not through the intent of anyone. Class B lead battles really developed now. Kurt Luby was somewhere behind Griffin on the Steve Griffin on the grid, but he's caught right up with him now, and I'm sure that they both feel they're being a little bit delayed by some of the not exactly delayed, but they have trouble getting past the Cosworths, and that closes up their battle. And lead battle's now closed up as well, and Pinkney's right with Matthew Neal again. Looks as though what Matthew was saying about the tyres perhaps not lasting to the end of the 10 laps of the Grand Prix circuit may well have been true. Pinkney's right with him. We're well after halfway really through this race now, and Matthew does look certainly as though he's having a certain amount of trouble. Pinkney's through into the lead. Is he? No, he's not. Matthew fights back. Really, I think it was the four-wheel drive that helped Matthew there, but Pinkney, a little bit of sideways there from Matthew. I really don't think Pinkney could have avoided that little bit of contact there. Side by side, then a terrific lead battle, without doubt the best we've seen really in the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship since the very beginning of the season. The first time anybody's really been in a position to challenge the Nissan Skyline since then, and it's Dave Pinkney who's doing it in his two-wheel drive Sapphire Cosworth, right with him once again, braking under the vehicle bridge through the right-hander. They'll be hard on the brakes down into Priory. Pinkney dives down the inside of the left-hander at Priory. Can he find a way through? No, he can't. It must be very frustrating for Pinkney. He's so nearly there, so nearly past him. And Matthew Neal there, slowing a bit. They make a little bit of contact. Matthew fighting to hold on to the wheel as we go back in car with him through the right-hander, the first element of Luffield, then the second element of Luffield here once again. Hard-fought race this. Matthew looks in the mirror, sees that Pinkney's behind him, voices his opinion, so to speak, with his left hand across the line onto the final lap. Matthew Neal leads then. Dave Pinkney on about half a length or so behind him. Frank Greenway's up there with them as well into Copse for the final time. We see that once again as they went into the left-hander. This is Brooklands onto the very short straight, then Matthew running very, very wide. Pinkney opposite lock there, trying to correct the slide. I would imagine his tyres probably aren't doing that well either. Matthew really putting all his effort into claiming another class victory. Important for him to retain his advantage in the Class A for over 3 litre cars. They come over the brow, under the vehicle bridge, into Bridge Corner itself for the final time. Just the remaining corners of this terrific new complex here at Silverstone. Exciting viewing place, lots of new spectator banking, loads of action on this 5-corner complex, and this time they're not as close as they were the previous lap round. Matthew Neal looking confident now. The checkered flag is being readied there by the start and finish line. Matthew Neal it is who's going to claim his 4th victory in 5 races at the 1991 Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship. He retains his class lead. A quick flash of the headlights there as he crosses the line to his pit crew to say thanks. Pinkney is second, then Frank Greenway in the ICI car is third. Back though to action still going on in Class B in the final stages of this race. Soames Langton in number 55 right on the tail of Graham Coombs. Graham making only his 2nd appearance in the series this year. I wonder whether they've got some tyre going off type problems as well. They're having all sorts of problem maintaining grip here. Lots of sideways action, keeping the crowds here right to the end of the Silverstone day. Matthew Neal then, Dave Pinkney and Frank Greenway acknowledging the cheers of the crowds and the salutes of the marshals. Confirmation of results. Neal wins from Pinkney, Greenway, Monk, Clark. Class B is won by Steve Griffin in 8th place, Class D by James Kaye in 16th, and Class C by John Morris finishing 23rd overall. In the championship, Matthew leads Class A with 36 points, 1 point behind Class B leader in the overall chase. That's Steve Griffin. Patrick Watts leads Class C, and Graham Churchill Class D. So was it really Matthew Neal's tyres that were the main problem?
We really were struggling, and from about lap 5 onwards, with the tyres going off, the slower corners, the car just didn't want to know. We'd turn in and it just wanted to go straight on. But the faster bends, we could lose him, but then he'd be right in our tail again.
This is the Honda unit that enables the cars to dominate Class D. So many of them, in fact, that together with the Class C runners, they're on their own now. In Class C, it's a different story. Volkswagen with their 16-valver, the new Peugeot unit Richard Longman prepared, and the well-tried Vauxhall example. Altogether, it makes for close racing, as Kaye and Churchill get away at the front, and Pat Watts, together with Andrew Hartwell, make a mess of their start and get penalised for jumping it. The door shut on Watts by John Morris, and he's still falling back down the field. At Brooklands, James Kaye leading Churchill and Hartwell. Honda's Trevor Elliott going well. He's pushing Vaughan Richmond for all he's worth. And Richmond leading Class C, as Watts pulls up a place. Roland Dane challenging Elliott here. And Hartwell slipping back through the field. Kaye pulling out a full length of a car over Churchill. And Watts really hard at it now. A close examination of a different kind. The bumper of Vaughan Richmond's car. One of the few times that Pat lost his cool with Silverstone. He got himself up and alongside as the leaders went through, looked as if he was going to take the position. He'd got the inside line. And somehow or other he muffed his gear change, threw it all away, slid wide, and back on the inside came Vaughan Richmond. So Richmond, pleased with himself, was able to hang on to that position and came up to take the class at the flag, as did James Kaye and the overall position. The results: Kaye, Churchill, Roland Dane, Trevor Elliott the first 4, Richmond 5th, Morris and Pat Watts 7th overall. So Kaye was closing the gap on Churchill, and Richmond joined Pat Watts as leader of Class C. In the bigger classes, a tremendous start by Lionel Abbott in the Saab saw him come between the 2 front row members, and Matt Neal didn't like that much. Nevertheless, he was on the inside and struggled through as they came out of Beckett's. Certainly the Saab had fluttered but to deceive. Kurt Luby was the victim of a tremendous passing manoeuvre by James Prakowski, and somehow or other Prakowski got away with it. But on lap 2, with Neal in the lead, it was Rob Squires who caught all the action here, giving a great shock-absorbing bash to the shock-absorber man himself, Jeremy Rossiter. Rossiter went away to retire, and Steve Griffin now led Class B. Prakowski went out of the race, not unexpectedly after a manoeuvre like that, while Lionel Abbott found himself under tremendous pressure from Lee. Pinckney was right up with them, and with a bit of leaning on the lamppost, onto the grass went the Saab and back a place. Kurt Luby received an unexpected visit from Graham Coombs in the tail at Copse. Coombs got second in the class for a bit, but not for long. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And a chance to look at it all over again from the outside. The man to profit by that was Soames Langton. The real battle now was for 3rd and 4th places. Lee and Pinckney scrambling it out all the way up to the flag. But the winner now of 5 out of 6 races in the championship had to be Matt Neal. Greenway was in 2nd place. Lee pipped Pinckney to the post. And Class B went to Steve Griffin. So the results look like this. The Nissan, the Sierra, the Sapphire and another Sapphire, with the M3s lining up 10th, 11th, 12th, line ahead for their class. Matt Neal sprayed the champagne and reflected upon the fact that he'd won 5 out of 6 races, and he was not to take part, of course, in the Wilhire with that car not entered. But after 6 rounds, Neal led with 45 points his class, if Griffin led the whole thing overall with 46. Watts and Richmond sharing Class C, and Graham Churchill the Class D leader. On now to the second half of the season. Round 7 at Donington Park was won by Matt Neal from Graham Hathaway and Paul Lee. And then he went home to catch chickenpox. But the BMWs couldn't be caught by anybody else in the Wilhire. Luby with Will Hoy and Ray Bellum were the winners there. Angus Mackay's good drive, however, took Class A for him and second overall, with Vaughan Richmond going well and winning his class and Roland Dane doing the job too. At Brands Hatch, Matt Neal got rid of his chicken pox and of his temper and didn't go well. Dave Bartram was the winner there, with Graham Churchill into the winner's circle. We rejoined the series at Mallory Park, another of the split races. First, the C&D event. Sunny conditions and a huge crowd. With Honda dominating Class D, it wasn't a question of what car, it was what driver. And Churchill have got 39 points to Kaye's 25. Vaughan Richmond leading Class C from a surprised John Morris. At this stage, Patrick Watts and the Peugeot were struggling.
Yes, there's nobody more surprised than me. The Peugeot was incredibly quick for the first 3 or 4 races, but one way or the other, I won't say they've lost their way, but they don't seem to have maintained the performance that they first displayed.
And have you found some speed from the Golf?
I think that on average we've found about half a second on most of the circuits, yes.
James, looks like it's going to be a battle again with your rival Graham Churchill, and time's pretty close.
Very close. Round here we're about 0.3 quicker than Graham, but I mean that's just breaking wrong into the hairpin or anything, you can soon make that up.
Just 0.3 of a second separating James and Graham Churchill as they line up in these little Honda Civics on the front row of the grid. An average speed of more than 90 miles an hour around the Mallory Park track. It doesn't look like a quick track, but it really is, particularly for these little VTEC Hondas. There's Graham Churchill preparing himself for this race. Inside of row 2, John Morris, we heard from earlier in the Volkswagen Golf, and alongside him a guy who we haven't seen very much of in the championship, double Renault 5 champion there, Nicky Phillips. Patrick Watts there on the outside of row 3 with a lot of work to do. This confirmation of the way the grid lines up. Kaye and Churchill and the Hondas on the front row, Morris and Phillips and Volkswagens on row 2. Inside of row 3, alongside Watts is David Pitcher's Vauxhall Astra. Rolling start, remember, for Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship races. Churchill on the inside, James Kaye on the outside. Down the start, Patrick Watts in car. We are with Patrick in the Peugeot 309 GTI. We can see him to the outside of the track at the moment with the little James Kaye Honda leading. John Morris tucks right in behind James Kaye. Terrific start there from John, up into second place, and right in the middle of all that dust there looked like a roll to me. Wait until the dust clears and see exactly who it was. What a lot of dust he created. It's now 77, which is the Vaughan Richmond Vauxhall Astra. Well, very disappointing for him. Class leader out of the race already. Hondas now first and second, Morris third, fourth. Oh dear, we're in car with Nicky Phillips. He's fourth overall, second in the class. The car bouncing across the grass there was the Peugeot Patrick Watts. He will be with us. I'm trying to catch a view of him in the mirror. Oh, a bit of sideways motoring there from John Morris. And where's he gone? He's gone to join the marshals in the marshals post on the exit of Shaw's hairpin. Well, the two front runners then in the 2-litre class, Vaughan Richmond and John Morris, because I'm certain John Morris ain't going to restart, both out of the race already. So, overall race battle between the two Hondas. Now, third overall, Nicky Phillips just leading Patrick Watts. There's Dave Pitcher, former National Hunt jockey in the Astra. There we see Vaughan Richmond's car lying on its side. There is Vaughan Richmond in the sunglasses, so he's all right, albeit not looking mega cheerful about it all. The two Civics then with James Kaye still leading Graham Churchill, with Patrick Watts still at the moment unable to get past Nicky Phillips in the battle for the 3-litre class. There's another relative newcomer to the championship, which is Alan Letts in the Lance Owen Astra we saw there too. Back though with these very quick little Hondas. Note, of course, something I haven't mentioned, of course, is that the Class D cars are ahead of the Class C cars. These little Hondas really considerably quicker, much more on the pace than the Volkswagen and the Peugeot. We're inside with Patrick Watts. Just see how narrow the Mallory Park circuit looks as we get a replay of John Morris getting very sideways. I think he might have just got a gentle tap there from one of the other Golfs. He thumps the barrier pretty hard, but from seeing that in slow-mo, I'm pretty certain that John Morris will be okay. Back in car with Patrick Watts, the left-hand drive Peugeot 309 GTI. There's the two Hondas. Overall race leaders, James Kaye still with the upper hand over last year's class winner, Graham Churchill. Down through Devil's Elbow, very quick, the swooping left-hander there, past the pits and the hospitality suites here at Mallory. And see, they're already a long way along the straight before we see third place Nicky Phillips, fourth place Patrick Watts, battling for the 2-litre class. Phillips at the moment in the 7-12 Autos car with the upper hand. They're third in Class D. is 82, which is the Hereford Honda dealer Richard Waugh, and John Morris even got going. Well, I said earlier on I wouldn't have thought John Morris would have restarted, but he did, so, and the car looks hardly damaged as well. Tough little motors, these Golfs. Back in car with Nicky Phillips, leading the 2-litre class at the moment. Coming into the S's now, and really having to work hard to correct the direction of the front-wheel drive Golf there. He succeeds in so doing and manages, certainly glancing around us at the moment, to stay ahead of Patrick Watts. Bags of lock there to get round Shaw's hairpin, trying to make sure that he's got a line tight enough to keep Patrick Watts behind him, and thus far he has. The white Golf ahead of the white Peugeot, and through Devil's Elbow past the start-finish line once again. Patrick Watts taking a slightly wider line as he approaches Gerrard's, one of the fastest parts of the Mallory Park track, the swooping right-hander named after Bob Gerrard, ERA, pre-war ERA driver, winner of the first car race here at Mallory Park many seasons ago. Back in car with Patrick Watts now, following Nicky Phillips. See a little tap as we're on the rumble strips, and this time as we come along the back straight, along Steb Straight, diving for the inside at the end of the straight, Patrick Watts goes through into the lead of the 2-litre class, but Nicky's right with him. Nicky Phillips gets alongside as they come up the hill towards Shaw's hairpin. Can Nicky Phillips drive all the way around the outside of Patrick Watts, or indeed brake later and get a tighter dive down the inside on the way out? Well, no, he doesn't do either of those things. So now, for the first time as they cross the start-finish line, it's going to be Patrick Watts in the lead of the 2-litre class ahead of Nicky Phillips. And he will be aware, I'm certain, that the Meadow Herbs Astra of Vaughan Richmond is lying on its side. He may not be quite so aware of the problems that John Morris is having, but certainly this is going to do Patrick Watts' championship's hopes a fair power of good. Overall battle now, you see James Kaye having extended his advantage to about half a dozen or so lengths of a Honda Civic VTEC. So it looks as though this day at Mallory Park, Graham Churchill's going to have to give best. Out of these two, I would not like to lay any money at all. Patrick Watts currently leading that class, as we see John Morris there, fourth in the class at the moment behind Dave Pitcher. But as we say that, comes alongside Pitcher. I think one or two little bits of body strip came off with a bit of contact between those two there. John Morris determined to get the best result out of this race that he can. And is he going to take third in the class, or is he not? Is he going to pass him? I believe he does. The Golf looking as though it's got more oomph along the straight, but no, Dave Pitcher still fights back. John Morris much more experienced, and Morris gets it all wrong again. A little bit too quick going into. It's not John Morris's day, is it? Oh, now he can't get it going. Come on. Oh no, marshals, please give me a push. Can't get the thing started. Parked in the middle of the approach. I wouldn't like to sit there. Approach to Gerrard's. Another of the Astras, I think that was Alan Letts, came past him. So here, coming through Shaw's hairpin then, for the very last time, James Kaye in the Derek Warwick Honda Civic VTEC to win the C&D race overall and Class D, the 1600cc class in his Honda Civic VTEC, second overall and second in the class, Graham Churchill. So that keeps places there very tight indeed. Coming home third overall to claim victory in the 2-litre class will be Patrick Watts. That puts Patrick and the Peugeot back into contention with the problems experienced with the accident to Vaughan Richmond and John Morris, who eventually finishes 8th overall. A delighted James Kaye, though, after yet another race victory.
Everything's just gone right for us today, and after the troubles we've had over the last 2 or 3 weeks, you know, I just can't say enough thanks to the team.
I haven't even bothered to see how many more races. I mean, I was so disappointed after Brands Hatch that I thought, well, let's just plod on through the rest of the season and see what happens at the end. But I think we're back in with a chance of winning the championship again now, the class at least.
Well, he looks a lot happier than he did earlier on, and this is confirmation of what he's been saying. Patrick Watts now with a 4-point lead over Vaughan Richmond in Class C. Graham Churchill, his advantage over James Kaye narrowed now to 13 points. Well, there's another race, of course, today, and that's for the A and B cars, the Cosworths and the BMWs. The Mallory Park crowd delighted by the splendid weather, and here, the car which has been dominating Class A, Matthew Neal's Nissan. He still leads the class despite some aggravations in the most recent race at Brands Hatch, but confirmation of where he is exactly, 21 points ahead of Frank Greenway's Sierra Cosworth in Class A, while Kurt Luby leads Class B from Soames Langton. Soames, however, not appearing for the rest of the season. For Dave Bartram, Brands Hatch was a mixture of delight and destruction.
I had my first win at Brands, or first win in the series, which was very nice for me. On the downside of things, my teammate Rod Barrett was laying 6th and battling with Heather Bailey, and had a near side rear tyre that was deflating, having picked up a piece of flint earlier in the race. Unfortunately, just on the end of the race, lap 19, he exited Druids at Brands and the car went over.
Dave Pinkney qualified second fastest, but along with Heather Bailey, his time was disallowed for a technical infringement. Then he had car problems too.
Yeah, unfortunately, the pop-off valve zeroed during the qualifying session. It read 20.1 when we came into the pits. So unfortunately, they put us on the back of the grid with a 10-second penalty.
And your team's got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, we've also blown the head gaskets. I hope we don't get back to that syndrome from last year.
Class B has been shaken up, with Steve Griffin's Cotswold BMW M3 losing points, having fallen foul of the regulations, and Kurt Luby is easily now in control, helped by a win in the 24-hour race.
Yes, it has. It's been very good. We won the Wilhire, which was very good.
And you've moved into the lead overall in the championship.
That's right, yeah. I'm trying not to think about it yet, because there's a long way to go, and I'm trying to concentrate on the class championship rather than the overall.
Confirmation then of how the grid will line up. For the first time ever, the two Nissan Skylines appearing on the front row of the grid, Matthew Neal and Rob Squires, with two Cosworth-powered Fords, a Sierra and a Sapphire on the second row, Frank Greenway and Gareth Howell. The rolling start then with Dave Pinkney, of course, right at the back of the grid because of his technical infringement. And there's somebody already pulling off on the warming up lap, number 20, that's Gareth Howell. He's obviously got some sort of drama. I wouldn't park my car there if I were you. However, he's getting out of it, so obviously that race tech car is going no further. The Rover pace car pulls off into the pits. You can see the green BMW of Kurt Luby drinking for position in midfield. Matthew Neal, though, in the big Nissan Skyline, is going to be leading into Gerrard's for the first time. Rob Squires behind him, and next up behind him was Frank Greenway. A little bit of sideways motoring there for Kurt Luby, and he goes right off onto the exit of Gerrard's. Is he going to be able to hold it all together? No, he doesn't. He hits the tyre wall, and he rolls over. And that is not a good start for Kurt Luby. Marshall's leaping down off the tyre wall to sort him out as we go back, coming through the S's, and already Dave Pinkney's got past 3 or 4 of the BMWs in the warranty holdings. Sapphire there, now tucked in behind Graham Coombs as they come up the hill. Let's go in car with Matthew Neal.
The other Nissan's very close at the moment. I've got to see if I can break his toe. The Sierra should be giving him some trouble, which will keep him busy, and hopefully I can make a break.
So Matthew then coming past the start-finish line up towards Gerrard's once again, trying to make that break to pull away from the second of the Nissans. Doesn't appear to be doing so at the moment. There's James Prokofsky, the Birmingham entrepreneur, just ahead of Pinkney. Pinkney will be the next man to get past him in car with Kurt Luby from the start. Remember, we've seen the accident from the outside, drinking around, trying to get past 1 or 2 of the Cosworths as early as he can. Into Gerrard's, correcting himself, possibly a little tap there, not absolutely certain, goes out onto the grass. Looks as though he's just about gathered it all together, but no, he loses it, hits the tyre wall, and fairly gently over we go and end up on our roof. You can see Kurt still moving around, off come the belts, out goes the driver, and there he is, safe and sound, the other side of the Armco barrier. Dave Bartram on the inside of Steve Griffin. Griffin now the Class B leader with the departure from the race of Kurt Luby. Neal leads, and Rob Squires gets it wrong at Shaw's hairpin, runs very, very wide indeed. Looked like a complete loss of grip, if that's possible, with a four-wheel drive car. Frank Greenway fighting to take second place, which he succeeds in doing. Back at Shaw's hairpin, somebody else gets it wrong. This time it's James Prokofsky. Heather Bailey in the green and white Sapphire gets past him, as does Graham Coombs, but he soon restarts, a couple of places down. There's the second and third place battle then, as we go back to follow the progress of Dave Pinkney in the warranty holdings car. He's alongside Dave Bartram as they go up towards Shaw's hairpin. Pinkney's got the tighter inside line. This will move him up into fourth place if he can manage it. Well, I think he does. No, Bartram fights back, tries to go all around the outside of Pinkney, and at the moment he's holding that fourth place at present. Bartram's got the tighter inside line as they go down through the through Devil's Elbow, and he's still there. Back with race leader Matthew Neal kicking up the dust as he comes onto the back straight. The tight confines of Mallory Park putting a lot of pressure on tyres, particularly with the big Nissan. They replaced brakes as well between practice and race. Here's Pinkney now challenging Rob Squires. He's got past Bartram, he gets past Squires as well. And so up into third place, that will be, goes Dave Pinkney. A great charge through from the back of the field, really fired up after his practice problems. Graham Coombs in the second place in Class B BMW M3 squeezes past James Prokofsky, but Kurt Luby's teammate Peter Tyson at the moment still behind the Birmingham man.
Still seems to be doing the job, but hopefully it'll hang on in there.
So Matthew feeling reasonably confident at the moment. Onto their last lap they go. Pinckney desperate to try and get himself as many points out of this Mallory Park race as he can, trying to keep in touch with Frank Greenway there, or indeed trying to get past Frank for second place, but not really looking as though it's going to be possible. The very lone lead race leader, though, Matthew Neal in the Nissan Skyline GTR, comes up Shaw's hairpin for the last time. As we go back to this second place battle, Greenway breaks, Pinckney breaks much later, closes to within a couple of lengths of the Ford Sierra as they go through the hairpin, but I very much doubt as he corrects the slide there with opposite lock. Matthew Neal then acknowledges the checkered flag, and in the background we see Frank Greenway coming through second with Dave Pinckney behind him in third. As the results come through, though, we find Pinckney disqualified from that third place as a result of a technical infringement, which makes the top three Matthew Neal, Greenway and Rob Squires. Steve Griffin finishes 7th overall and wins Class B with Graham Coombs and Peter Tyson. The next drivers up in the BMW class. Consolation then for Griffin after his earlier disqualifications. Matthew Neal accepts his awards and we hear from Griffin.
I had a few Sierras battling around me and I decided to keep well out of the way of that.
Yes, keeping out of their way is the problem.
Yeah, that's right. They were all over me at the start like a swarm of bees, so I thought silly trying to get in if I get in an accident with them, it's not for anything, so I just let them all by.
Now, after last week's debacle, this must feel much better.
Yeah, it's a lot nicer to be on the rostrum than back in 10th place in qualifying.
Can you still do it?
Hope so. I saw poor old Kurt land in the tyre wall, which is not a thing you'd like to wish on anybody, but championship's looking better now and all to go for it.
For Matt Neal, the championship certainly was looking better. 63 points and looking as if he might just be able to take it away. But for Kurt Luby, Mallory was a disaster. The question was, could he fight back at the fast Castle Combe track? And would the car be as good?
Matthew Neal's pole position time, representing an average speed of nearly 100 miles an hour, rounds the Combe circuit. Peter Clark there on the inside of the second row. Dave Pinckney, who had to change a head gasket between qualifying and the race, on the outside of row 2. James Kaye, the quickest man in Class D, and also well up on the grid on the outside of the 5th row. Confirmation there of the quick men, Neal, Greenway, Clark, Pinckney, and the rolling lap. A rolling start for all these Esso Superlube production races, with the Matthew Neal Skyline on the inside, Frank Greenway on the outside. The yellow car there is Peter Clark. The pink one is David Pinckney. And as they start, who is it who makes the best of the start? Well, Pinckney's in there and fighting. You can see just how bouncy parts of this track are. We're in car with Dave Pinckney lying in third place at the moment, as we thought Peter Clark a likely challenger for Matthew Neal, and indeed going through into the lead, or does he? No, he was on the inside on the slight left flick before the right-hand bend, so he's actually still in second place, running very wide there, one of the Sapphires. But Neal it is who leads. Peter Clark in second place, Dave Pinckney third, Frank Greenway fourth. An impressive fifth and leading Class B is Steve Griffin, although he nearly loses his fifth place there to number 8. That was the car that ran wide, which is James Prokofsky. So Matthew Neal looking confident and comfortable at the moment. Some very exciting motoring through the field. We're back in car with Pinckney pulling alongside Peter Clark, and indeed going up into second place. By the looks of it, yes, we do. So Dave Pinckney in second place now in the Warranty Holdings car. Matthew Neal behind him, coming through Camp Corner across the start-finish line. Once again, one of the cars we're going to be looking out for in this race is Graham Hathaway, who started from the pit lane after technical problems in qualifying, his time having been disallowed, so we'll keep an eye out for him a little bit later on. Peter Clark challenges back to retake that second place, and I think he does so as they go through quarry. Does he? No. I don't know. Pinckney, difficult to tell from the perspective of the camera angle here. I think Pinckney's just got the nose ahead. Yes, he has. So Matthew Neal will be enjoying the battle of the Sapphires behind him, because that should give him a little bit of a chance to pull away from the rest of the field. Steve Griffin in the black BMW leads Class B. Class D there led by James Kaye, and between James Kaye and the second man in Class B, Graham Churchill, is one of the BMW M3s, Dave Brunston, another relatively local man. Crowd here as well, bank holiday crowd. Clark now having dropped back some way. Frank Greenway tucked in behind him. The two Yorkshiremen having travelled a very long way indeed to Wiltshire today. Back in car with Pinckney. Matthew Neal ahead of us, just past the pits up through the car parking area there. Approaching Avon Rise and then into the right-hander at Quarry. We close right up at Quarry. You can see But as we go through the corner, the four-wheel drive of the Nissan pulls away. Dave Pinkney's Sapphire, incidentally, not one of the four-wheel drive cars. Clark and Greenway. Griffin still having that battle with Prokofsky there. Dave Bartram having a similar battle with Kurt Luby. James Latham third in Class B there. And there, number 15 is Graham Hathaway. He's got himself up just about into the top 10 now, I'd say, and still charging hard. This is the race leader, and obviously the man ultimately that Graham Hathaway is attempting to catch up with. The 100+ wheels roomstock racing entry of Matthew Neal, as he does that along the bumpy Castle Combe track. A retirement there, one of the Vauxhall Astras from the 2-litre class. Looked like number 68 to me, which will make it the car of David Eves. Matthew Neal then, and very wide Matthew Neal goes, gets one wheel onto the grass, off he goes, and what happens? He nearly hits the pit wall but doesn't, hammers backwards across the track, stops on the infield, car undamaged. I would assume Matthew Neal undamaged as well. That puts this man in the pink and white warranty holdings, Sapphire Cosworth into the lead, David Pinkney, and what a lead it is. Second is Pete Clark, third is Frank Greenway. They will have both seen Matthew Neal there. There's Matthew out of the car, sprinting back to the sanctuary of the pits as we go back in car with Dave Pinkney. And this is a replay of the incident. You can see one wheel on the grass there for Matthew Neal. David Pinkney is a delighted man there as he takes the lead. I'm sure he won't be crowing at the disadvantage there of Matthew Neal, but it puts Pinkney into the lead. There's Dave Bartram there now, having got past Kurt Luby and got himself now up in close touch with James Prokofsky. This is the race leader, and possibly the loneliest race leader that we've seen in a round of the Esso Superlube Championship this year. Class C led by the white Peugeot there of Patrick Watts, the left-hand drive 309 GTI tucked in behind him, and somebody else off there. A cloud of dust and tyres bouncing all over the track. It's another of the Astras, the one with stars all over it, number 69. That's Dave Pitcher. He looks as though he wants to continue. I suspect I probably wouldn't if I were him. It looked to me as though there was front near side damage where he'd gone in. In car then in the BMW of Peter Tyson, marketing manager of Pirelli tyres. He's just behind Graham Hathaway there. Now Hathaway's progress through the field has been impressive. He's now up into 5th place, and side-by-side motoring for Frank Greenway and Peter Clark. Enough lost there between the two Yorkshiremen. Frank Greenway from Keighley, Peter Clark from Ilkley, and Peter Clark loses a further place to Steve Griffin in his BMW M3. Now, the BMW, of course, from the 3-litre class, Class B, but Steve Griffin, local man, lives only just down the road from Castle Combe, has done a lot of testing, a lot of development work here at Castle Combe, really knows this very tricky circuit like the back of his hand, and putting that local knowledge to exceptionally good use indeed in the Cotswold BMW M3. In among the back markers now, Dave Pinkney here, the race leader. He's got an Astra ahead of him to lap. An Astra behind him indeed, but it's a long time before we see Frank Greenway. They're the man in 2nd place. 3rd overall in Class B leader now, Steve Griffin. 4th is Peter Clark, and there is Graham Hathaway. So he's made himself up, made himself all these places up. He started from the pit lane, as I say. That means to get up into 4th or 5th place. He's overtaken about 20 cars already in this race and is still on a very hard charge. 4-wheel drive, the Graham Hathaway Sapphire, and that might give him a little bit of an advantage on the Castle Combe track here. Indeed it has. He squeezes past Peter Clark in the PCA automotive entry, and the next car he'll tackle, now in 4th place overall as he is, will be the Steve Griffin Class B leading M3 ahead of him. Headlights on the white Sapphire of Graham Hathaway, just to make sure everybody knows that it's his intention to be ahead of them almost as soon as he arrives on their back bumper. 2nd place Greenway, 3rd place Griffin. I said headlights, I probably actually meant headlight, looking at it, as there only seems to be one that works. Hathaway tucked in behind the BMW M3. It's some indication of just how well Steve Griffin's driving, the length of time he's keeping some of these faster class cars behind him. But Hathaway goes through very smoothly this time, the blue flag waved. Here's the battle for 2nd place, and a slight touch there as Hathaway makes a little bit of contact with Frank Greenway, who loses the Sierra there, gathers himself all back together again, rejoins the race. He will have lost, however, a handful of places there, perhaps 3 or 4. Back though with race leader Pinkney just lapping the second of the Derek Warwick Honda Civics there. That's the car of Mark Smithson standing in today for Roland Dane. And then from the leader, we're still really waiting to see the second place man. There he is, Graham Hathaway then now in second place as a result of getting past Frank Greenway. Third is Griffin, still comfortably in the lead of Class B. Leader though, no problems for David Pinkney. He had overheating problems in qualifying. That was resolved with the changing of the head gasket. Exactly, funnily enough, as he did the previous week at Mallory Park. Another of the Astras bouncing around on the curbing there and onto the grass as James Prokofsky in the Sierra squeezes past Kurt Luby, just easing ahead of the Sierra. They're here, though, then, coming through the last bend at Castle Combe is Dave Pinkney. He will take the checkered flag. There it is. And a delighted Dave Pinkney back in car with Peter Tyson, and he's slowing down as well. You saw him just holding his mirror to stop the vibration there. He's obviously looking for someone in his rear-view mirror. We've seen a couple of cars storming past him. This is the last lap. We're still racing. That explains it. That is Tyson's teammate, Kurt Luby. It's important for Kurt to get as many points as possible, and we see Luby gets across the start and finish line ahead of Tyson, but grinds to a halt immediately after. So then confirmation there of Pinkney winning with Hathaway second. Steve Griffin wins Class B, James Kaye wins Class D, and Patrick Watts is the winner in Class C. As Pinkney accepts his garland and cup, we hear from the local hero Griffin. A cracking race.
Class winner nice and third overall. It's, must admit, it's a little bit surprising even for me.
Yeah, this is sort of a home ground for you though, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we only live 20 minutes away, although, funnily enough, it's one of the circuits I've actually raced on, you know, least of all. It's only the second time I've ever raced here.
It's nice to win with a complete team there, but with Matthew falling out, it's nice to win, but obviously it's nice to beat the Nissan fair and square if possible.
So for Silverstone, in the final long-distance race, the pressure was really on the Rimstock team. The Nissan had proved itself in long-distance races already on the continent and in Australia. And they'd brought in Keith Odor to drive alongside Matt Neal, with bags of experience of the car from last year and all the experience in the world from Spa this year. The question now was, could the car do it? This was the important race for them.
Pole position is Frank Greenway's Sierra RS500 with Slim Borgard at the wheel for the first stint. Dave Pinkney on the outside of the front row, he's sharing with Tim Harvey. Behind Pinkney's pink car on the inside of row 2, Matthew Neal, the class and championship leader, with the 100-plus wheels Nissan Skyline GTR. Alongside him, Heather Bailey in the Ford Exchange Parts Ford Sapphire Cosworth 4x4. On row 3, Graham Hathaway in the car he not only drives, but also the car he builds and prepares. Yorkshireman Peter Clark, another of the Sapphires, alongside him on the outside of row 3. Vic Lee is sharing with Dave Bartram in his regular car, the Sapphire. Class B quickest man there, Kurt Luby, chatting to Lionel Abbott. Class B also includes Barry Williams and Mark Hales in, sharing with regular drivers Graham Coombs and Steve Griffin. Quickest car in Class D, one of the Derek Warwick Hondas. There, though, is Graham Churchill, the man who leads the class. And there's the quickest car in Class C, Richard Longman, leaning in and talking to the regular driver, Patrick Watts. David Leslie at the wheel is driving the Volkswagen Golf, the Listers of Coventry car of John Morris. Class leaders before this race: in Class A, Matthew Neal, also leading the series overall. Class B, Kurt Luby. Class C, Patrick Watts. And Class D, Graham Churchill. Although grid positions and the times are not that important in a 4-hour race, it's probably worth noting that the pole position time is a good second and a half under the existing lap record. Can they keep up this pace? A rolling start, of course, for all rounds of the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship, and as the Rover pace car pulls off into the pit lane, the pole position car, Frank Greenway's regular Sierra, with Slim Borgard at the wheel, looks as though it's nosing into the lead as they go up to Copse for the first time, but watch out for Dave Pinkney on the outside. No, he had to tuck in behind Slim Borgard there, so it's Borgard as we go in car with Dave Pinkney. Borgard it is who is leading through the left-hander at Maddox, down through the gearbox, hard onto the brakes, into the tight right-hander. We're on the national circuit, remember, 1.4 miles or so of Silverstone. Peter Clark third, Matthew Neal fourth, Heather Bailey fifth, sixth there was Lionel Abbott. The rest of the field streamed through. 34 cars, a fine field to get in this championship quite so late in the season when some other series are suffering from smaller grids. Not the case here with the Esso Superlubes. Borgard leads, Pinkney second, Clark third, bit of a gap then, Neal, Heather Bailey, Behind Heather, Lionel Abbott in the Saab 9000. Behind him, Jeremy Rossiter in the yellow Spax Sapphire. Vic Lee, who started Dave Bartram's red Sapphire behind him, then Hathaway, and then the Class B leader, Kurt Luby there. Quite some way down in these early stages, but we've got to watch the BMWs later in the race. Back in car with Pinckney. Thinks about a little challenge there at Copse, but thinks better of it. A long way to go yet, 500 kilometres, 189 laps that works out at, incidentally, on the national circuit here at Silverstone. So Pinckney not really pushing it too hard at the moment. Somebody who is pushing it a bit too hard there, though, that's number 19, which is Bob Pope in one of Kevin Maxted's Sapphires. He got it all wrong there. You see the Class D lead battle there going past him. That was at Beckett's where he made a real mess. Gets it all back together ago. Though we just, as we're in car there with David Leslie, we just saw the recovering Bob Pope on the left there as we went through. Volkswagen Golf GTI. This is John Morris's regular car with David Leslie, who drove this car in the same race last year at the wheel. John Morris likes to have the World Sports Car star in the car. Gives him a little bit of an impetus and a bit of something for the rest of the class to think about. There is, with VTEC written on the side, that's Trevor Elliott. He's currently got himself, by the looks of it, into second place. Or is he in the lead? No, he's in the lead there of the 1600cc class, just ahead of Graham Churchill. Back in car with Dave Pinckney, still second time we've seen him look at exactly the same point on the circuit on the inside there at Copse to see whether there's a chance after the long run down the straight to squeeze past on the inside of Slim Borgood, but no chance for that. Slim, of course, very experienced here on the national circuit at Silverstone. The ex-Grand Prix driver does a lot of testing here. He's done a lot of development work with Roger Dowson, and Dowson's company is running Frank Greenway's car in this race. Heather Bailey there has found her way past Matthew Neal, so Heather is up to fourth, Neal down to fifth. Sixth there is the Saab 9000 of Lionel Abbott. Now that's a car which isn't too hot in the sprint races, but can often come good in the long distance ones. Back in car, and another spin. Now, it's not the same one as we saw before replayed. No, I don't think it is it? I do believe that is what's called investigating the handling potential of your race car, which Bob Pope has now done a couple of times in the very early stages in this race. And despite the fact that we haven't even reached quarter distance yet, we're about to lap the back markers, and there Dave Pinckney goes through into the lead. We've got to pick it up as it comes to the camera, but he was on the tighter inside line. What we've seen him as we've been in car with him looking at the previous few laps, trying to go around the inside at Copse. He succeeds in doing so. So Dave Pinckney in the Warranty Holdings PLC Ford Sapphire Cosworths now leading the Esso Silverstone 500. Slim Borgood there in the Gaskell Textiles back car in second place. A lot of traffic though, very demanding for these Sapphire Cosworth drivers and the Sierra Cosworth drivers. They're in among the Class C Vauxhalls at the moment. There's Peter Clark still third, fourth is Heather Bailey, fifth is Matthew Neal. Not putting anybody under a lot of pressure at the moment. Matthew obviously holding back a little as they go through the two elements of Luffield there. Out towards Woodcote and across the start-finish line once again. Peter Clark from Yorkshire then in third place. Heather in the four-wheel drive Sapphire, the quickest of the four-wheel drive Sapphires so far today, with the four-wheel drive and four-wheel steer Nissan Skyline behind her. Matthew pulling alongside. Is he going to squeeze past Heather Bailey? Yes, he does. I thought he was actually going to get past Peter Clark there as well. So Matthew Neal moves up to fourth place behind Peter Clark. As we go back in car with the Scotsman David Leslie again, that's Barry Williams. He's directly behind there in the Goodliff Run Rock Turf BMW M3, the regular car of Graham Coombs. Ahead of him, a stream of Sapphires, and there, out of the car, so to speak, is David Leslie, the black Volkswagen Golf. That's the car we're watching. There's Steve Griffin, directly behind the David Leslie Golf. A glimpse there of Helmut Holfeldt, come over from Ireland for this first race. And there, number 38, is Shigeharu Kumakura, one of the two Japanese drivers in the Derek Warwick Honda team this weekend. Kurt Luby, Class B leader, number 31, bouncing all over the curbs there at Beckett's. That won't do him any good. We're back in car with the race leader, as he is now, Dave Pinckney. Very nearly the class winner in this race last year, although a brake caliper problem towards the end of the race cost him that victory. He's very determined to win, if possible, certainly the class, and obviously, if possible, the race overall at Silverstone. As off goes Shigeharu Kumakura, the Japanese driver, right into the gravel trap. Car number 38 then, the Derek Warwick Motorsport entered car. The marshals come down and say, come on, Mr. Kumakura, out of your car. Looks like that's a retirement there as we're back in car, this time with Barry Williams in the Graham Coombs car, up the inside of Jeremy Rossiter in the Spax Sapphire Cosworth. That's a simple manoeuvre. I was about to say that's a simple manoeuvre. It turned out not to be. Barry Williams, unusual to see Wizzo spin. Got himself going though, and we're seeing it in slow motion here. Replay there, we see a very, very neat little pirouette from Barry Williams, who keeps the engine running, dips the clutch, puts the car back into gear, and off he goes, and here he is. Oh yes, that'll be a little embarrassing when he gets back to the pits later. Not the normal form of activity from our Wizzo. And, not in the gravel trap anymore is Mr. Kumakura. I wonder whether he dug it out or drove it out. Well, he's got himself going again. Race leader now with headlights ablaze, 45 laps, just under a quarter distance there. Pinckney leads, Borgard is second, Neal is third, Heather Bailey is fourth, Kurt Luby is fifth, and Lionel Abbott is in sixth place. The pit stops start, and as you can see just how hot those brakes are getting. Peter Clark's Sapphire Cosworth there, the car in question. Here is the Matthew Neal car, his father Steve there standing at the front of it, Keith Odor leaning in. Keith is going to be sharing the driving with Matt Neal in the Skyline today. And Lionel Abbott's car being wheeled away. We'll check on what that is in a bit here. And burst tyre there, front near side for, that's Trevor Elliott, isn't it, in the car that had been leading Class D in the earlier stages of this race. If you look through the car, you can just see that very rough tyre there. This class lead now handing to Graham Churchill. You can just see the immense traffic problems that these drivers of the larger cars are having in the Silverstone 500, although I'm not suggesting anybody is not watching their mirrors closely, but it's a very, very busy track with more than 30 cars still out in this race. Kurt Luby still at the wheel of the Class B leading car, number 31, and a spin there for Slim Borgard in the car which was running in second place earlier on, the Frank Greenway Sierra RS Cosworth, and he rejoins, costing himself some time there in the ICI Gaskel Textiles car. Gathers himself back together, however, without any damage to the car. And in the pits there is the David Pinckney car, and a burst tyre there. Oh, what a lucky man. A burst tyre on the Class C leading Patrick Watts Peugeot, and just in the right place to dive into the pit lane. Tim Harvey now at the wheel of Pinckney's Sapphire.
No problems at all. Cross fingers. Yeah, it seems to be very good.
So Pinckney looks delighted. Obviously a quick and efficient pit stop for the Warranty Holdings team then. So Tim Harvey, of course, a star from the British Touring Car Championship. Not quite such a star there, I don't think, but getting himself together. And that's a very interesting manoeuvre there. Matthew Neal seemed to be sort of getting out of the way of that Sapphire. In the pits there, the Jeremy Rossiter Sapphire, and just ahead of it we can see work going on in the Roger Dowson pit on the Frank Greenway Sierra RS. You can see just how busy the pit lane is there as well. Dave Bartram in his Sapphire, having taken over from Vic Lee. Vic having a weekend off from his normal day job, so to speak, which is running two of the British Touring Car Championship BMW M3 teams. As we go back onto the track and we see the two Peugeot 309s now with Richard Longman at the wheel of the Patrick Watts car. Richard, of course, a triple touring car champion. Back in car with Barry Williams, coming down the pit lane for his first pit stop in the Rock Turf M3. He'll be handing over to regular driver Graham Kirk. I have a feeling that those people waving at him there might have been his pit. Wizzo, I think you've missed your pit. You could reverse. No, you can't reverse. That was Nigel Mansell's trick, wasn't it? Yes, here come the crew to deliver Mr. Williams to where he ought to be. Hasn't been his day so far, really, has it? That'll do. Yes, right. Stop there. Splendid.
Fuel!
So, back in the correct bit.
Did it run out? Exactly run out, it just dies.
Barry seems very keen on getting some fuel in here. The team seem very keen on not giving him any.
Go on, back.
Jeff Goodliff running this car.
It's going to go out this way. Right, okay, I can't see. Push, push, push!
Up into the lead has come the Class B leader, Kurt Luby, who just dives out round one of the Meadow Herbs Astras there in the Frank Shorter Team Pirelli LNC BMW M3. In second place now, there it is, coming out of Luffield there is the Matthew Neal Nissan Skyline GTR, and closing up on Kurt Luby, who of course is yet to make what the team hope, I'm sure, will be just one pit stop for his BMW M3. And now that explains why we've got a new leader there, because Tim Harvey slowed right down in the warranty holding Sapphire, which had been started in this race by its regular driver Dave Pickney, and I would imagine, as we are at Luffield, that Tim Harvey is going to pay a visit to the pits, and hopefully we'll be able to find out why that is in the not too distant future. Just to recap a couple of things, we gather Heather Bailey has lost her power steering, which would explain that odd manoeuvre earlier on, and also Lionel Abbott's Saab retired with gearbox dramas, which catches up on the main retirements there. We see for the first time there's the Mercedes, which is in this race, and oh, very arty. Yes, that's the Griffin Motorsports other car they're running in this race. James Latham, the regular driver of this M3, getting out of the car there. Pit lane work very important, pit wall work very important as well, the timekeepers. And there's right, okay, we just saw Matthew Neal go through into the lead there past Kurt Luby, as Kurt Luby dives into the pits for what, as I say, they hope will be just one pit stop. The BMW M3s, they're lighter than the big Cosworth powered Fords. There's Peter Tyson, the Pirelli marketing manager, waiting to take over from Kurt Luby. Kurt, of course, comfortably the class leader in the points table, as well as in this race. There in the pits then, Peter Tyson not allowed to get into the car. You saw Kurt just reminding him of that. Mustn't be in the car while refuelling is taking place. He waits to see that that is done. Refuelling now completed. In goes Peter Tyson. It's a fabulous livery the Frank Shorter cars got. All their sportswear looks like that as well, with all their sort of stripes and things on it in lurid colours. So as Tyson pulls out, are they going to manage on just the one pit stop?
Tried to make it to halfway, but unfortunately it bogged a couple of times. We daren't run out of fuel. Run out of fuel, we'll not finish. So we brought it a little bit early. We may have to do a splash and dash again, but we'll have to wait and see.
And the Frank Shorter M3 there. At 90 laps then, Matthew Neal back into the lead. Tyson now second, the Griffin Hales BMW third, Fultz and Bowden also BMW fourth, Vic Lee fifth, with the Bartram car and the Walker Povey BMW in sixth place. So the BMW's up there and fighting for overall honours, not only for class honours in this race. Back in car with Dave Pickney, having taken over after a pit stop that we saw from Tim Harvey. This car having slipped down the field, brake problems, unfortunately, as last year, affecting Dave Pickney's chances in this race. He's disappointed with that. In is the Griffin Motorsport M3 with Mark Hales now having taken over from regular driver Steve Griffin. Tennis ball being used. Now what have we got here? We've got a very slow number 10, which is Chris Clark in Ken Grundy's Sapphire Cosworth. He's desperately trying to get into the pit lane. I know that they started from the pit lane, the idea being to try and cut down the number of laps they did, because they're aiming to do the race on just one pit stop. Chris is looking as though he's run out of fuel. Let's hope that he can get that car going again. Class B leader Peter Tyson coming over the hill here then in the M3 into Beckett's. Oh, locks the wheel as he goes into Beckett's, but that's not a problem. Oh, there is a problem though. That's the Lancaster Ipswich Mercedes 190E. It's got Dave Brunsden at the wheel. He normally drives an M3, but he's sharing the car, this Mercedes, with Alistair Davidson. There then is Tyson, and as Tyson comes past the pit lane, in the pit lane, you can just catch a glimpse of it there as we zoom in on it, is the Matthew Neal Heath O'Dore Nissan Skyline. So Tyson has gone back up into the overall lead, and this is the pit stop where the driver change takes place. And among the two leader cars, this car now the class leader, John Morris, having taken over from David Leslie.
I had a one excursion off at Beckett's, and then someone spun in front of me and got me jammed, and I couldn't go anywhere, and that lost me about 10 seconds. After that, I got going and picked my way back up, and eventually got through to first place in the C class about 5 laps before I came in. So I did what I was supposed to do, and now it's up to John Morris to see what he can do with him for the second half of the race.
And into the pits comes the car we've seen for the first time in the championship this year in this race, which is sponsored by Luke, regular sponsors of Sean Walker, who will be taking over this car from Guy Povey, who started it. As Barry Williams relaxes on the pit lane, we see the 135 lap positions. Neal and O'Dore lead, Luby and Tyson are second, Hathaway and Wallace third, Lee and Bartram fourth, Williams and Coombs fifth, Griffin and Hales in sixth place, and we see the Mark Hales Steve Griffin BMW there. Dave Pickney back at the wheel of his Sapphire 2, trying to carve his way back up through the field, and there is the second placed Nissan with quite a lot of cars to get past before he catches up with the BMW M3. Sizable gap there. He's got a lot of traffic ahead of him too, a lot of BMWs, Sapphires, Hondas. Keith O'Dore, of course, dominant in Class A in this championship last year in the Jan Speed Skyline, as Vic Lee takes back the Dave Bartram Sapphire.
Didn't push the car so hard, just left nice and carefully, and now it's all Vic's problem. It's over to Vic Lee. It's his problem.
Here then is the Peter Tyson BMW M3, as into the pits goes the car that had been chasing it, and as you see, had narrowed the gap considerably from first to second. Keith O'Dore at the wheel of the Skyline now, of course, and I think will be staying in until the end. They're coming in. Are they going to change brake pads again? It's just possible, because this big, heavy Nissan really does put a lot of pressure on the brakes. Keith O'Dore out of the car for the refueling.
Leave them, Andrew! Leave them!
Leave them!
Leave them is the shout from the mechanic, so that's what they're going to do. That's going to save them. It takes perhaps as much as a couple of laps to change brake pads, so it's just a case of the driver now, as you heard the mechanic there saying, easy on the brakes for the rest of the distance. So Keith O'Dore back at the wheel to complete the Esso Silverstone 500. The question now is whether he can narrow the gap to this car, which is leading the race, and locked his brake again, exactly as it did in the earlier shot that we saw. Peter Tyson at the wheel of the Frank Shorter BMW M3. Can this car, with Keith O'Dore in the Nissan, catch up with him? He comes out of the pit lane onto a charge. And there, looking as though it's being pushed into retirement, is Dave Wallace at the wheel of the Graham Hathaway Sapphire 4x4. That'll be disappointing for them. And here, just coming to the end of the long trek back from his retirement in the little Honda Civic, is Piers Johnson, who was sharing with Trevor Elliott. And into the pits comes the race leader, Peter Tyson. This must be one of those, as they're called, splash and dash visits to the pits. A quick refuel to make sure that they have got sufficient fuel to last through to the end of the race. Certainly Tyson had been pushing quite hard to try and maintain the advantage over the Nissan Skyline, and I have a feeling that this pit stop is going to have eroded that advantage. Yes, there it is. Coming past the pits then, Keith O'Dore in the Nissan Skyline retakes the lead of the Esso Silverstone 500. Tyson out of the car, as regulations require for the refueling. Quick leaning in to belt him up, strap him up as quickly as possible. There's Kurt Luby. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed, but remember that as far as this championship is concerned, it's the class points that count. It's a real seesaw of a race, this. The Pinckney Sapphire Cosworth now back up into the top 10 despite its assorted brake problems, but I'm not sure that they're going to get too far up. There, the Keith O'Dore pit board shows 53 seconds his lead, as Patrick Watts in the Peugeot, possibly the favourite to win Class C, on his way to victory in that class. And this, certainly not the favourite to win Class D, but a super victory there for the Steels of Hereford Honda Civic as they come to the closing stages, the very last lap of the 189 of the Esso Silverstone 500. Keith O'Dore at the wheel of the 100 plus wheels Rimstock Racing Nissan Skyline GTR, with a great little battle still continuing with the two BMWs there, the Coombs car just ahead and the Griffin Motorsport car there, fighting right down to the finish for third place. Here though, Keith O'Dore, who drove the second part of the race, having taken over a car which Matthew Neal had looked after very carefully in the first half, comes through to take the checkered flag and victory in round 12 of the 1991 Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship, the Esso Silverstone 500. And a delighted Rimstock Racing crew there on the pit wall celebrate that victory. Through into second place comes Peter Tyson in the car he shared with Kurt Luby, the Frank Shorter BMW M3. And the gap between those two cars after nearly 4 hours of racing, 55 seconds only. Confirmation of the result then, Neal O'Dore win in the Skyline, Tyson and Luby are second in the M3 and win Class B, Williams and Coombs are third, Griffin and Hales are fourth, also in M3s. Pinckney and Harvey get up to finish fifth and second in class, good result for them. Watts and Longman win Class C in the Peugeot, and Richard Waugh, Tim Busby and Russell Grady win Class D in the little Honda Civic VTEC. Some delighted drivers then on the celebration podium, spraying the champagne, lots of it, with all those drivers at the end of a 500-kilometre race. Confirmation of the championship positions, Matthew Neal, Kurt Luby, Patrick Watts and Graham Churchill all still lead their classes. And so it seems that going easy on the brakes and looking after the car really does pay off.
Well, that was the secret at the end of the day. I mean, we got a bit worried by half distance. We thought we'd probably have to make a brake change, but checked them on the third stop when Keith came in, and he stroked home through the fourth
4th stint. Pinckney must be happy with that after a long season.
Yes, extremely happy. That's in fact the first win and only win this season, because of course we dropped out of the Donington 500 and I was in the other car in the Wilhire, which Kurt won. So yeah, extremely pleased.
We're very, very happy that it's won a long distance race, which actually turned out to be a bit of a sprint until the last sort of 20 laps, where we knew we had a lap's lead and I backed off the pace, but we were going around there very quick times.
Donington Park, round 13, a sprint race, and Pinckney in pole position. Indeed, all the Sierras closing on Neal, second fastest in front of Pete Clark and Gareth Howell.
Third row of the grid, we find the second Yorkshireman, Frank Greenway, and then alongside him, the second of the Nissans, Rob Squires, another returnee to the championship after being away for a while. There, starting from the pit lane, is going to be Peter Tyson, following an infringement in practice. Everybody else, though, starting from the right place. The lights have gone to green. Matthew Neal already trying to get ahead in the first run up to Redgate, and it looks as though he's going to do it. The grey and black Nissan Skyline there. Matthew Neal at the wheel, turns in first indeed. Peter Clark, good start for Peter up there in second place. Pinckney third, Gareth Howell fourth. Kerfuffle here, that BMW, that's James Latham. The red car there, Dave Bartram. Facing the wrong way there, James Brokowski in his Sierra. Sure, they'll all gather themselves back together as we go in car with Dave Pinckney through the old hairpin, rising onto the curbs on the exit under Starkey's Bridge. We're in third place with Pinckney at the moment. That's Peter Clark from Yorkshire directly ahead of us, and ahead of him the race leader Matthew Neal. So it's Nissan, Sapphire at the moment. Challenge for the second place, but no, Pinckney thinks better of that. Can't quite find a way past on the inside, so as they come up to Coppice then for the first time. Neal leads, then Clark, Pinckney, Gareth Howell, Frank Greenway, Heather Bailey. Leading Class B there was Kurt Luby. That's the second man in Class B, 33 there, Steve Griffin. Under the Dunlop Bridge. Remember, we're Grand Prix circuit here. And Peter Clark there trying to find a way past the inside of Matthew Neal to take the lead. He didn't quite succeed in that. 2.5 miles of the Grand Prix circuit. We're on what the sort of Grand Prix loop bit now, coming down to the Melbourne hairpin. Very, very hard on the brakes, this part of the Donington Park track. Hard braking. Pinckney taking an entirely different line there into the Melbourne hairpin. Now, looking as though he's got problems with his gearbox. Hope that isn't going to cause him a drama throughout the race. Looks as though it might have cost him a bit of time. I can see him glancing to the right. Does that mean Gareth Howell or somebody's coming up to challenge? Peter Clark goes round on the inside. Is he going to take the lead? Super view from Dave Pinckney's car. And it looks as though he might do. Almost a bit of contact there. Matthew Neal ran very wide. And yes, indeed, Peter Clark does take the lead. First time I'm almost certain that Peter Clark has led a round of the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship this year. And breaks for Redgate. But Matthew Neal's on the inside. Retakes the lead. Pinckney there. Back in car with Pinckney, trying to find a way past Peter Clark as we go downhill through the Craner curves once again. Very, very fast part of the track here. If you ever go to Donington, it's a super place to watch motor racing from. Neal still leads. Peter Clark backs off as they get to the old hairpin. Pinckney's there with him. You felt the vibration there, heard it as he ran up over the rumble strip on the exit of the hairpin, but he's still in third place at the moment. And it looks to me as though Matthew Neal's beginning to pull away, but Pinckney dives for the inside. This is the manoeuvre he'd, so to speak, rehearsed on the previous lap, and it still doesn't work. Felt a little bit of gentle contact there, and you can see it as they come up towards Coppice. Neal still leads. Pinckney, yes indeed, as they go into Coppice. Pinckney slips up into second place, but Peter Clark will be challenging. Gareth Howell there now challenging Peter Clark for third place. What a superb race these three Sapphires are putting on. Under the shadow of the Dunlop Bridge, there they come. Peter Clark still in third place at the moment. He's managed to reassert himself there. Gareth Howell not able to squeeze past in the race tech Sapphire Cosworths, but he's there poised if any mistake should be made. And Gareth Howell rockets out of the S. Is much quicker than Peter Clark. Down a gear he goes. As you see, the entirely different lines these two cars take gives a slightly tighter exit from the Melbourne hairpin for Pinckney, but not quite enough. But we're coming uphill now along the back of the paddock area. Then there's the tight left-hander at Goddard. Neal leads, and this time Pinckney dives right through. Really found a bit of road there. Dives right through. Little bit of contact there between the two of them, but Pinckney it is who now leads in the Warranty Holdings PLC Sapphire Cosworth. Approaching Redgate once again. Pinckney now the third leader of this race. Into Redgate he goes. The advantage is his. Second, Matthew Neal then. Is Matthew going to be able to find his way back past Dave Pinckney? They're on to the fastest part of the track, downhill through the Craner curves. We're back in car with Pinckney into the left-hander, and we don't go into the left-hander. Pinckney's off and grinds to a halt there on the grass, Dave Pinckney, and it looks to me as though that may well be a puncture a tyre problem for Pickney. He holds his hands up to the crowd. So we're in car with new race leader Matthew Neal. There in the gravel trap, and Matthew Neal goes off as well. So we're going to have yet another race leader in a moment. It must be that when Pickney found his way past, there goes into the lead, incidentally, Gareth Howell. I was just going to say it must be that when Matthew Neal and Pickney swapped the lead there, that there must have been some contact which will have affected tyres on both of their cars. That can be the only thing that I can think of. Making contact with the front, and there's a problem there. That's number 19. He's a relative newcomer, Phil Cutts, having, I think, only his second race in the championship this time out. In the background, we caught a glimpse of Dave Wallace's car in the gravel trap, and here in slow motion we see what it was that caused all of that. First of all, we've got Robert Squires really making a dreadful mess of what's going on. The marshals difficult to run through a gravel trap. There's Dave Wallace, very neat manoeuvre indeed, simply straight off at the S's, and there's no way that car, despite its four-wheel drive, is coming out of that gravel trap. Kurt Luby comfortably in the lead of Class B then, and this will do him some good now that Matthew Neal is lower down the order, because he could take over the overall championship lead. As for that matter, could this man, Patrick Watts? He doesn't have quite such an advantage in his class. He's got Vaughan Richmond right there behind him, but he's nevertheless leading it. And funnily enough, we're now behind him as we go back in car with Matthew Neal, making up the time lost with the tyre change in the pits. McLean's is the corner that we are at the moment. Patrick, gentle wave there to say, Matthew, do please pass me on the right-hand side. So Matthew Neal moving himself back up the order with a degree of luck and a following wind, and some very entertaining action ahead of him. Phil Cutts again spinning. That's the second spin we've seen for Phil Cutts. It may not be any his second, but he gathers himself back together. The other car involved there was the white BMW M3 there of Dave Brunson. And this is tragedy pulling off onto the grass. That looks like the Melbourne Loop to me. That was Heather Bailey, so she's obviously got a drama as well. We're watching the second place battle between the Yorkshireman in the yellow car, Peter Clark, and the Yorkshireman in the white car, Frank Greenway. Greenway seems to have the slide edge at the moment. I thought he was going to try and drive all the way around the outside at Goddard. A few brave men have done that from time to time. Great battle for second place as we see the blue and pink car there of Gareth Howell leading this race, and Frank Greenway does indeed go through to move up into second place in the RS Cosworth, the Gaskell Textiles back car. Peter Clark then demoted to third. Back in car with Peter Tyson now in the Frank Shorter Pirelli BMW M3, picking himself up a place in class if he can get past Graham Coombs on the inside there at Goddard, which I think he's done. I'm looking in the driver's mirror just to see if I can catch a glimpse of Coombs. Looks as though we've sorted out that class place, so Tyson from his pit lane start, but no, Coombs is fighting back. There he is, and Coombs holds on to his class place. Peter obviously not having the straight line off necessary to complete that overtaking manoeuvre. As we see James Rakowski already having had a problem, you remember, right on the very first lap on the first corner. His exhaust system now hanging down there underneath the car, the back rear valance already having disappeared completely, but Rakowski continues along his way after that little spin there at the S's. Gareth Howell then on the last of the 10 laps in this 13th round of the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship. The Race Tech car comes out of Goddard and he salutes the checkered flag, his first victory of the year, and he hasn't appeared in all the rounds by any means. Kurt Luby comes through to claim victory in his class as we go back in car with his teammate Peter Tyson, but he's going to dive around the inside at Goddard. Is he going to manage it? Bit of contact there. Tyson spins. Does Coombs continue? Well, Coombs gets it together quicker than Tyson, as we see there a delighted Gareth Howell.
And Howell, the sixth winner in the championship, would that he'd gone better in the earlier rounds. Greenway went well too, and so did Pete Clark. But with 2 rounds to go, it was still wide open. It didn't work out well for Matt Neal, however. He won those 2 rounds, but it wasn't enough. Luby had 2 wins as well, but not enough starters at Oulton meant he didn't get maximum points. For this man, it was a different matter altogether. Patrick Watts had gone well with the Peugeot. The final score seeing Matt Neal with 91, Kurt Luby with 88, Graham Churchill with 58, taking their respective classes, and Pat Watts took his and the championship too by a bare 1 point in the Esso Superlube Saloon Car Championship 1991 for Peugeot.